The views, comments, stories, and opinions shared within this podcast are our own, or those of our guests, and in no way represent the views of the companies, associations, or organizations that any of us may work for or represent. All stories, events, and tales shared within this episode may or may not have happened in the manner in which they were told. They may or may not have even happened at all. The details have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty alike. This is Squawk Ident. You're listening to Squawk Ident, an aviation podcast that explores the many pathways to an aviation profession, the challenges that a professional aviator can expect in today's marketplace, and we share many stories along the way. I'm your host, Aviator Tony, a professional airline pilot currently flying for a U.S. legacy airline with over 20 years on the flight line. Welcome aboard Flight 140 of the Squawk Ident Podcast, recorded on the 30th of October, 2023, from the Aviator Sound Studios from somewhere in Southern California. On today's flight, we plan to visit with all of the Squawk Ident crew members on the same flight. Really, we discuss a range of topics from low visibility takeoffs, pilot hiring, and future Cadet Academy students, how to show up prepared to an interview, to mental health breakdowns on the jump seat. Hey, pass me those shrooms. Sweet. So stay with us as we run through our final checks as we prepare to push off the gate. Flight 140 of the Squawk Ident Podcast is officially underway. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Captain Keith Wolsinger for joining us on Flight 139, Airline Retirement. Keith, we wish you all the best with your journey ahead and look forward to hear about what your journey has in store for you. Well, joining us today is an exceptional aviator and co-host. He is a professional CFI, II, and MEI flight instructor, a former Embraer 145 airline pilot, King Air instructor, Dassault Falcon 900EZ 2000, and 650 commander. He's a captain, a director of flight operations, and corporate operator as well. He hasn't flown much, so he decided to join me here in the new Aviator Sound Studios from somewhere in Southern California. Please help me in welcoming to the show, Captain Roger. Captain, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Tony. It's been a while. I'm happy to be back, and I'm excited for the upcoming show, actually.
Yeah, and thank you for joining me here in the studio. There's some exciting news coming up here at our new sound stage. It might sound a little echoey here because I haven't hung all my sound dampening material yet, but it's a new space, a much bigger space here at the studio at the home office, and I'm just so excited to have you here, and thank you for helping me set it up.
Absolutely. I'm happy that I could help. I'm glad it's a larger space. It doesn't feel that way. I'm only sitting about 6 inches away from you. It's like we're flying a 152 together.
Do you remember those days?
I do.
Yeah, because we did a lot of that.
I do. I'm scarred. Don't tell the FAA though. Okay, that could come back and bite me.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this earlier today. It's like, man, remember when we were flying the truck, the Seneca 1?
Yeah, we were talking about the Seneca 1.
Building some multi-engine time. We were both flight instructors over at Tailwind Flight Center in Chandler, Arizona, the formerly known as Tailwind Flight Center Flight School. And we were building time. And I remember a couple times we were like, yeah, let's go do touch and goes over Williams Gateway. And you're like, watch this. I can land this airplane with no hands.
And there was Tony. It was like, watch this. I'm going to put it down on one wheel and I'm going to dance it over to the other wheel. And then I'm going to let the nose wheel come down. He thought he was hot stuff. Let me tell you, folks.
And the funny thing is, not yesterday, but a couple days ago, I'm flying and I had a pretty astute, pretty sharp FO. And I go, okay, so you're landing. This is what I want you to do. I want you to put the right main on the upwind wheel. I want you to put it down right at the aiming point marker. I want you to hold it. And then I want the left main to come down just a second later. And then the nose has to just kiss the asphalt as you roll out. Can you do that? Do you think you can do that? You got the skills? And he's like, shit, who do you think he is? He did a good job, though. He did a good job. He didn't quite, make the marks that I was hoping for, but he was in the touchdown zone. It's acceptable. Oh, no. We had such a great time here, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you so much, Roger, for joining me.
Absolutely.
And also joining us today is another superb aviator and Squawk Ident Podcast co-host. He's a former international and professional racquetball champion, a member of the 9G Club and AP and avionics tech and RC aircraft commander, a boat skipper, commercial drone operator, and currently an Airbus captain for Legacy Airlines. The name we use here on the show is an alias to our employer, a U.S. mainline carrier. Joining us from his mobile podcast studio high atop the 4th floor of the Hilton Hotel at Boston's Logan International Airport, help us in welcoming our very own Captain Rob D. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be here. It's good to see that we are able to get everybody back together here. It looks like we're getting the old band back together for this podcast. So ready to get this one going.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being here. I know you have a short layover this evening, and you were more than gracious to join us on this short. I know whenever you got to go, let me know. I want you to get your rest so you can be fit for duty and, have no problems.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, smack dab in the middle of a 4-day trip, and the last 2 days we have some long legs. So after this, I'll get some rest and we'll finish up the trip.
Yeah, you got to catch up whenever you can. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And lately these trips have been very stressful. We'll probably talk a little bit about this here later in the show with stress related to this post-pandemic, whatever they call it, optimization.
Oh yeah,
schedule
optimizer.
The optimizer optimizes your schedule, and it's like,
basically, maximizing your labor for the amount of time that they have. Yep, we're pretty much running full tilt. I don't know. There's not much they can squeeze out of us, but we've had some pretty flight packed weeks, followed by short days off. So, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard about your low vis takeoffs. I look forward to hearing about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We'll talk about it. It's just something that you go through all this training, especially when you're going through your instrument training, when you're trying to get all your ratings under the way, and you read about these low visibility takeoffs and requirements, and one day be able to take off and land in these kind of conditions because you train for it.
Yeah. And
then we get through the 121 training syllabus, and we end up doing that in the simulator, and then here you are out here in the real world putting to use what you've learned, and it was pretty cool to see it all happen.
Yeah, it's great when it all comes together. I love when a plan comes together.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, also joining us today is an outstanding aviator and Squawk Ident Podcast co-host. He is a former U.S. Navy Reserve's Chief Information System Technician, a certified flight instructor, and an Embraer 175 pilot and pilot recruiter for Sandpiper Regional, the alias to one of Legacy Airlines' wholly owned regional airlines. Joining us from his home podcast studio, where he's getting paid to stay home after being displaced off IOE. Lucky. From somewhere in Justin, Texas, please help me in welcoming to the show, Mr. Alex D. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Hey, forget about it.
No, I'm good. Like Rob said, I'm glad seems like we got the band back together again. It's good to actually get all of us here. And Roger's alive, and I'm glad to see that.
Thank you.
Didn't know that he doesn't respond to anything in the group chat. So, I mean, there's that. So
I like to stay mysterious.
Well, mystery no more. Roger's alive, folks.
He is alive.
Very much alive.
Yeah. And
I call it he's just multitasking. He's got his hands in his head and so many different things. I'm sure he's mentally responding to the text, but he can't get to it.
I do mentally respond to them, and then I move on to what I was doing, the 4 other things that I was doing.
Well, I want to say, listening to your intro, Tony, your intro, not any of ours, you neglected to update one thing on yourself.
What's that?
You're no longer a pilot for a Legacy airline. You're a captain at a Legacy airline.
Oh. You have a very good point there, my friend. Well, I'll just have
keen observation there.
I thought you were just trying to keep your humility.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm seeing it in real time, folks. He is currently changing it. His humility is now gone.
That's gone. Actually,
forever.
I thought about changing the whole Aviator Tony
Roger,
to.
I'm not sure if there's enough room in that room over there.
Can you see me getting squeezed off the screen right now?
Hey, you're in my space. You're in my space. You're in my light, buddy.
It's the head.
You're in my light.
His head's expanding.
Yeah. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine too.
That's correct. Terry was having some connectivity issues. He was here earlier, and something's going on with his connection. Terry, we hope you can get that resolved here pretty quick and join us. But for now, we wanted to just kind of catch up with what everybody's been up to. Since usually I, pretty quick to catch up on all of y'all. Today, I thought maybe I'd give you a little bit of what I've been up to. Now, we all know that, the upgrade process was relatively seamless. It did take some time to get everything situated. And I've been out on the line now for a little bit over about 40 days now. So getting close to my 100 hours, which will then make me a non-restricted captain. Because right now,
that was going to be my question: is how close are you to consolidating?
Yeah, I'm at 78 hours, I believe, total time. There's been a couple stretches.
Yeah, you didn't have to consolidate.
Not consolidate, restricted captain. So visibility requirements.
Yeah, just 100 hours.
So 100 hours.
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah,
it's all good.
So let's talk about
Normally
that.
you do have to consolidate, but
when you're new on equipment. Okay, so you're an FO or a captain, doesn't matter. But if you're new on equipment, you have to consolidate, meaning you have to have, 200 hours in the first 90 days, I think, or 100 hours?
It's 100 hours.
100 hours in the first
100
90 days.
hours.
Yeah, so you need to have that time pretty quick. They want you to, so that the rust doesn't start to build up and you stay fresh and you just go through the motions of what you're supposed to do with your call outs, your SOPs, your checklists, things like that. So you get into the motion.
Yeah, I think it's part of like the AQP requirement thing.
Yeah. And so I didn't have that because I went from the right seat of the Airbus to the left seat of the Airbus. So I didn't have to consolidate. However, because this is my first time in the left seat of the Airbus, I am a restricted captain because I don't have that many PIC hours at Legacy Airlines. So the first 100 hours of PIC time, you are restricted, meaning you have to add a half-mile visibility and 100 feet to your MDA or DDA. So I have not had to deal with that yet. So I've been very fortunate. The weather's been relatively good. Rob, you gave me some advice. You said, okay, you're a captain now. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong in your first 30 days. And it's pretty much held up. I've had a passenger misconduct. I've had a medical issue. I've had an engine fail at shutdown, which was not a big deal, but okay, why did it do that? Yeah. I've had some multiple write-ups that were like not quite correct, and I had to make sure that they were corrected before I left. So, it's kept me on my game, on my toes.
Yeah, good.
So I really had a good time, and I could not have asked for more professional and experienced first officers. There's something about the pilots that we have, especially on the West Coast here, that I can speak of because I can't speak of any other base. And Rob, I'm sure you can mirror my thoughts for Dallas as well. The RFOs are sharp, man. This is not like amateur hour. These guys have taught me a thing or two that I was like, wait a minute, I was on this airplane for almost 6 years and I didn't know that. So, yeah, it's
nice to have that balance on the other side there, just to keep you, in between the lines there, keep you on your lane, and that way you don't very often to no man's land with your decision making and procedures and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I've noticed that I take pride in some certain little nuances of being in the left seat. One of which is the smoothness of my taxi. I've really been trying hard to master my technique so that I've received a couple compliments. Yeah, exactly. Because we've all been in the back of airplanes, and it's like you're like, well, we're still on the ground. Why why is my seatbelt tugging on my waistline? And like getting at the gate.
So let me ask you though, for this, do you fight that urge to in your first couple hours of driving the Airbus on the ground? Do you have to find it hard to resist the urge to press down on the tiller?
Yes, my wrist was getting tired. I was getting tinnitus. I was getting wrist carpal tunnel. I was getting carpal tunnel. I was getting all kinds of problems with my wrist.
Your ears? Thank you. I didn't want to have to be the one to say it. It's ironic that this is coming from Mr. Myocardial infractions. But I'm glad that somebody else. I'm like making this face. Like, what are you? Tinnitus.
Tendinitis.
What?
Listen. If you talk to a chiropractor, I'm sure there's some kind of nerve that's in the wrist that's somehow connected up to the brain.
Yeah,
or
I was getting this ringing. Yeah. No, I meant tendinitis.
To your ears, or yeah.
Hey, I'm only about 2 beers in, guys.
Tendinitis. That's tennis elbow.
Tennis elbow. Yeah, everything was hurting.
You know what's worse than tennis elbow?
What's that?
Golf ball.
Tennis balls. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just don't touch anybody else's tennis balls. So only touch your own tennis balls.
What is tennis elbow?
Well, you know what's worse than tennis elbow? Tennis balls. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Just smiling, Rob. Smiling, Rob.
Come on.
Smiling, Rob.
That's a good dad joke, Rob. Yes, to answer your question, yes, I was pushing down on the tiller and I was wondering why my wrist was hurting after like a short taxi, and I went, oh shit, and like the light bulb went off, and you don't have to push down on the tiller on this airplane.
Yeah, it's an automatic reaction when you first start driving it,
right? Because law of primacy, and that's an excellent example of law of primacy. You're doing what you did on the other airplane that you were on in the left seat. Now you're on this one, and so now I'm just 2 fingers and I'm pretty gentle.
Honest question. Do you find the 321s that have really spongy brakes?
I have found that some of the 321s have very spongy brakes. I don't know if it's necessarily something to do with the aircraft model itself, or if we have issues with brake glazing. Whereas I think that's what the company is talking about when they say don't turn your brake fans on unless the brakes are going to exceed 400 degrees. And the people that turn their brakes on as soon as they land because they go, well, I'm heavy on the brakes and it's always going to exceed, so I'll just turn it on right now. I think what happens is the brake drums, brake rotors, whatever it is that the Airbus has, the exact design, I'm not sure of.
Rotor stators.
So I think what happens is I noticed that some airplanes, we say they have spongy brakes, and other airplanes we say they have grabby brakes, where they kind of just grab all of a sudden.
Yeah. So that's what I flew today, a grabby brake. Yeah. I mean, you just, as soon as you touch it, it's like, boom.
Yeah. And that's a shame because I take pride in taxiing smoothly and trying to come around the corner less than 10 miles an hour and, try to approach the gate so you don't really know if we're stopped or we're not stopped. And because then people stay in their seats. Yeah. I have a theory that if you come to the airplane or come to the gate and you approach the gate and you get, the DGS on most of our gates counts down and says, 40, 30, 20, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And then if you time it just right, you can smoothly just kind of press the brakes. And if you have any power at all, you can just bring it back. And if you can coordinate that, it'll help have a nice smooth transition. And people don't know if you're stopped or not stopped. And so then by the time you turn off the seatbelt sign, everybody kind of gets up at once. But if you kind of approach the brakes and then you kind of hit the brakes and everybody kind of lunges forward, and then it says, one more foot, and you're like, oh crap. So now you got to move forward like a foot. And now everybody's already standing up because they felt that, So I do my best to try. I'm not always successful, but I take pride in my taxiing. My landings, my flying, not so much, but the taxiing, hey, forget about it. That's my thing.
It'll get better.
Roger, do you have pride in your taxiing of the G650? Is that a thing?
Sure. Although, we have some planes that the Falcons you actually got to push down, and then the Gulfstream that you can't push down. Oh, that you don't need to. Yeah. So it's like, And
you could fly the same airplane or two different airplanes on the same day. So 3.
Sure.
3.
I've never flown 3 different airplanes in a single day. I've flown 2 different types of airplanes in a single day, but not 3. I haven't gotten the hat trick yet.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun though.
They do steer a little bit different for sure. But because of it, I don't have any muscle memory. It's just kind of,
yeah. And what was the airplane? Maybe one of you guys know. Isn't there an airplane? Was it the 747 where the steering was actually mounted on the side of the captain's left leg, and you steered it like you're winding a pulley? Was that a 7.3 or was that a MD-80?
Well, the 737 has a tiller like that. It's mounted. Let me see if I can get it in the video here. Mounted to the sidewall, and you can push it forward to turn right, and you pull it back to turn left.
Yeah, see, that's always been
it's
weird to me
vertically.
to see that. Yeah, mounted vertically on the side pedestal, sidewall. Yeah,
yep.
No, I like the Airbus tiller. It's easy to use. It's very sensitive, and as long as you and it's all. And I was telling, I was flying with a first officer recently who is getting ready to upgrade soon, and I said, yeah, the biggest thing for me was not using my other hand, like to find the lights and to find the things like that. For me, it was more of that coordination with my left hand for the joystick, and then with the tiller, that wasn't a big deal because I've never really steered with my right hand. I never got to use a tiller as an FO. We don't do that at Legacy. But that, motion, that left and right motion, it just makes more sense.
Yeah. And there you go.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I just can't see you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So Terry, real quick, while if you can hear me, Transglobal is showing joining us from his home podcast studio where it's fresh off a trip from, what's the last trip you did?
Zurich.
Ooh.
And Rob complains about long legs flying across one country.
Dude, just add another hour or two, and I could have been in Zurich.
There you go.
Zurich, Germany.
Switzerland.
Oh, I'm sorry. Switzerland?
Yeah.
Switzerland.
I don't know much about the country, but their flag's a big plus.
I've never been to Zurich.
Oh, God.
They speak.
Isn't that in Texas?
My head hurts.
They always do well in the bikini competition at Miss World. Anyway,
I don't know where Zurich is. It sounds German.
What is the range of a 321? Because it's probably too far. I don't think that we should let this guy fly an airplane outside of the continental United States.
And what city are you in, Terry? I'm just going to ignore you.
Hey, we're going to be doing it pretty soon, Roger.
What's that?
Somebody better do something.
Help. I'm not in a safe space.
Get somebody a map or something, right?
Jesus. Yeah.
Right now?
I have another question for the group coming up regarding you.
We're never going to get this thing done.
Austria, huh?
Austria?
We'll put another shrimp on
Austria's in Finland. I know that.
So, strange story about somebody told me the other day that apparently at some airport in Austria, that there is actually an entire counter dedicated to people who ended up in Austria who meant to go to Australia.
No shit.
Allegedly. I just heard this just a few days ago. It's like you can actually stab an entire, because I cannot verify this information firsthand, but somebody told me that one of the guys I play tennis with was just telling me that there is an entire counter dedicated to this, which I cannot fathom. But now maybe I'm a little bit closer to understanding it now.
Yeah, because I booked your reservation. I got it.
Have you been in the airports recently? Have you got any questions from anybody in just a regular airport? I can completely understand why people go to Austria thinking they're going to Sydney.
Yeah. How does the city work? You don't book a ticket to a country.
Austria. Well, if you don't speak English too good, maybe, I don't know, language barrier.
Well, I'm sure they're booking I'm not sure they are. Because we used to use like travel agents. Like you call somebody and say, hey, I want a ticket from here to there. So
you know the story about Rochester, right? Rob, did I tell you that story? So
the Rock and the other Rock?
So like there was like many
Rochester,
moons ago,
Minnesota and Rochester, New York.
right? So many moons ago, it was dead of winter, February evening, last flight of the night, and I was flying for Sandpiper, and the captain and I take an airplane full of people to Rochester, New York. And, we go it's a small airport. We go through the terminal and we get off the airplane. We're last, obviously. We shut down the airplane for the night. And there's an old elderly man and he goes, Captain, can you tell me what's the best way to get to the Mayo Clinic? My eyes went big, oh my God. And so my captain, without missing a beat, he looks at him and he goes, all right, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go to that counter over there. You're going to book yourself a flight back to Chicago for tomorrow morning. And then from Chicago, you're going to book another flight that'll take you to Rochester, Minnesota. You're in New York. He goes, what? This is outrageous. I'm going to sue the company. He goes, sir, who booked your flight? He goes, well, I did. And he goes, well, you might want to talk to your travel agent next time, huh? And we just went to the hotel.
Man. That's horrible.
So it happens. It happens.
I can see that happening.
I could see myself doing that because, they let me fly airplanes, but I can't find myself out of a brown paper bag, if you ask me. But anyway, I digress.
Clearly, if you're thinking Vienna's in Germany.
I didn't say Vienna's in Germany. I was like, we're talking about Zurich. I don't know where Zurich is.
Oh, Zurich. Same thing.
I thought it was in Zimbabwe. It was, disease. I just thought they went together.
Same continent, I guess.
Is it? No.
They speak German there.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Switzerland.
You're just gonna confuse them more, Terry.
I know.
Wait,
what? The part of Switzerland that's closest to Germany, they speak German. The part that's closest to France, like in Geneva, they speak French.
What the hell kind of?
If you're down towards,
it's neutral.
If you're on the Italian side, they speak Italy or Italian.
They speak Italy.
Like
they speak Italy.
Canada, Montreal, the southern part of Montreal. They all speak English. But you go north, they all speak French. Can't understand them.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm glad we've spent so much time talking about this. This is great. Well, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us is another superb aviator and Squawk Ident Podcast co-host. He's a retired U.S. Army colonel and a former Black Hawk Battalion commander. His journey has led him to operate Apaches, Black Hawks, C-12s, UC-35s, and he has a master's degree in management and strategic studies. He is a former Embraer 145 and Boeing 737 pilot, and now currently a 7576 pilot for Transglobal. The name we use here on the show is an alias to his employer, a U.S. mainline carrier. Joining us from his home podcast studio, where he is fresh off a trip from Zurich, Switzerland. Joining us from somewhere in Northern Virginia, help us in welcoming to our show our very own Terry S. Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Roger's cracking up because off air, and maybe I'll play the audio, I don't know, off air just a while ago, I was like, Zurich, isn't that in Germany? And he's ashamed of me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
those pilots.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you should also play the audio clip of you changing your thing to captain. I will. Make sure everyone knows I'm a captain. I don't know geography at all.
I'm the captain now. So, hey, if it's good enough for a Somali pirate, what the hell? Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, I promise there's not much alcohol involved in today's podcast.
Thank goodness you work for a legacy airline. God forbid they not give you a piece of paper that says this is where you're going to go.
Well, they didn't make me take a test.
Which you clearly failed.
Would have clearly failed.
Put a dart on Zurich. Hell if I know. And they don't even speak Zurichian.
Listen, everybody. This is just proof that anybody can become an airline pilot. Okay.
So I'm going to bring something else up because at this point I really want to know what you meant by this. Okay. So yesterday. Okay. Tony was nice enough. We went out to eat to dinner, and at said dinner, he referred to me as what kind of captain? Not a real captain. That is a direct quote.
I'm like,
wait a minute. Hold on.
Hey, is that
where did he take you out to dinner? First of all, this is where we need to start off with.
Brio.
Was it like Chuck E. Cheese, or did he take you to like a real place?
Just a couple steps up from. It's a nice place. Italian cuisine.
I had no issue with the restaurant selection. It was this.
Okay. All
Not
right.
a real
Good choice then.
Not a real captain comment that I kind of let slide at the time, but now our esteemed colleague here is not only a restricted captain, which I didn't bring up last night.
Right.
Doesn't know geography
not a real
because
captain
Zurich
yet.
could be in. We're not sure what continent Zurich is on.
Well, you said Zimbabwe, right?
What exactly did you mean by that? How is it?
I'm dying. Ladies and
How
gentlemen,
is it that I'm not a captain?
you see-
and you
see what my friend does to me. Look,
Thank God airport codes are only 4 letters long because, oh my God,
wait.
Tony would get us really lost.
I don't know
maintain
much
that
about
he
Switzerland.
should not leave the continental United States. And you just need to maintain a restricted captain status.
Oh, guys, you would have been so proud. He's like, captain.
It looks like Terry's trying to put something up there for us.
I think that's a map.
I'm assuming it's a map of Europe.
This is France and this is Italy. Now, I know you've never heard of these places before. I think you're from Italy, but I know you don't know where that is. Okay, we're gonna show you.
That's in Canada.
No, Roger, he's from Canada. He's not from
Canada.
Italy.
That's where I was born.
Toronto is not in Italy. Okay.
Oh, there we go. It's coming into focus now.
There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Clear.
Zurich.
I think if I tap on it, I can see it bigger.
Is it a touch
See,
screen?
I told you, it's right there. See, Germany.
What? I'm just confused of what Australia's doing in the middle of Europe.
Australia.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have lost all decorum here on the Squawk Ident Podcast. This is what happens when friends get together and
I
start
think the
drinking.
listeners should know who their host is.
You should really know who you're.
Oh my God. Okay.
Heath, are you
And
sure
we'll
you
be
still
right
want to
back
do
right
this
after
career?
these words from our sponsor.
It was good that I was
Yeah,
here. Like
Tom
he's
Tom.
literally
For the
right.
best-
He's literally typing
best
it in his
directions in
notes.
the world.
Zurich, Germany.
I'm like, is that anywhere near Glasgow?
Yeah,
Squawk Ident commercials brought to you by Google Maps for the people who don't know where the hell they are.
I think
we
next
can get a
lesson.
sponsorship
Our next
from
lesson.
them? Help our Captain Tony out. Google Maps. We need a sponsor.
Dude,
Are Rand
that's good.
McNally still a thing? Like, does Tony need one of those?
Oh, the old
I think
captain's
they are.
right? You remember the old captain's
thank
map?
you.
the Captain's Atlas.
My
Captain's
name
Atlas.
is Tony,
Captain's Atlas.
and I'm geographically challenged.
Maybe you
Make you
were
pull out
supposed
a
to be in
map.
Rochester, Minnesota that night.
That's the story he told. Maybe they were supposed to go to Rochester, Minnesota, and they got
Right.
wound up in Rochester, New York.
He just changed the people around just to make it sound in his favor.
And I was like, damn it.
Really, you were the old man in this story?
I was.
Clearly. We have lost it. The train has derailed.
Oh, boy. And we'll be right back after I compose myself.
And a message from Google
Wow.
Maps.
Yep.
Okay.
Or maybe just one
You know the
picture. It's
sad
1,000
thing is-
words.
You know, the sad thing is we're only through our intros. We haven't even gotten to the podcast.
And that concludes episode 140.
But see, this is why I was looking forward to this. I like the ones that are unscripted. You know, he has no notes. You just wing it.
Yeah. Just go.
Speaking of mental health.
So mushrooms. Have you taken any lately?
Yeah.
In Zurich,
Or do you have
Germany,
any-
I had some
Too soon?
right before my flight back home
Oh, God.
to Los Angeles, Texas.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, New Mexico.
There's a place.
Hey, that
There's a
one's
Las
true.
Vegas, New Mexico.
That's true.
Yes,
That
I
was-
know.
There is a Miami, Arizona, too, right, guys?
Is it really?
Miami, Arizona.
That I
There's
did
a
not know.
Baghdad, Arizona.
I'm confused.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
If you want to go,
Oh,
I can
man.
take you all through Europe without having to leave Texas. There's Paris,
Yeah,
Rome.
Paris, Rome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
but when you go to Paris, Texas,
Hereford,
are there
Thereford,
French there?
But if just
Jackson,
so we're on the
Fulton.
same, if Terry says that he went to Rome, he didn't go to Texas. Okay. Yeah,
Oh, just
want you
because
to know.
they don't land a 7.5 in
Or Paris.
Texas.
He went to Portugal.
No,
They go together.
Rome
Paris
is
and
like-
Portugal. It starts with peace.
Rome-
That's
Rome is like 20 miles down the way that way. I don't even think they have an airport, let alone someplace Tony will land.
Yeah, Roger.
So
we're saved.
I didn't
At
know where
least Rome
Zurich
is
was.
safe.
Oh
It's
my
Texas.
God.
I'm sure we
30
can find
minutes of
a highway long
ridicule.
enough and wide enough that he can find a room to put
Son
his
of a.
and use his tiller. Oh, sorry.
little 2-finger action.
Oh God.
Okay,
Thank you, Roger. Thank you for being here.
I'll
Oh,
try
my
and
God.
behave from now on, at least for the next 5 minutes.
How much have you been drinking?
None.
Nothing. Zero. Zip.
I have
Zilch.
you. I have you.
I am his
You're
entertainment.
all
Thank
the
you.
entertainment that I need.
Oh my God. Well,
Jesus.
I'm not.
Terry.
I'm not a real captain though, so don't. Don't listen to me.
it was so good, guys.
I'm
He's like,
sorry.
yeah, I'm a captain on the. I have a fly a G6. I'm like, yeah, but you're not a real captain.
All right, Stu.
Oh shit.
Listen, if you need to call 911, you need to call a real doctor. Stu here is a dentist, all right?
So, Terry, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm sorry, Terry. I'll take a lot of responsibility for hijacking your intro. I apologize.
No, thank you.
My friend-
Thank you for that. That was
How was Germany?
How was Germany?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was the
shit.
Wiener Schnitzel.
Oh, man.
oh god.
Seriously, how's the food on those transatlantic flights?
Once you get there or on the plane?
No, on the plane. Come on, man.
You know what? It's actually okay. It's not terrible.
Really?
It's better than the
Yeah.
domestic stuff for sure.
Good.
Now, do you
'Cause
guys?
I am sick of chicken and potatoes right now.
But
That's all
wait a
it
minute,
is.
you're now
Chicken and
getting
potatoes.
first class meals, sir. You're not getting pilot
Oh,
catered meals. You're getting first class meals. So come on, you're
2
getting
nights in a row, chicken and potatoes.
wow.
Do you guys have any
I'm
ability
complaining.
to choose your meals?
yeah, it's leather or
Yeah,
feather.
you do. It's before you leave the airport. You got to choose whatever's in the airport.
So I can go into my schedule. I have to do it at least, I think it's at least 24 hours in advance. But I can choose from either the regular, the standard crew meal, whatever that happens to be, or I can choose like vegetarian meal, the vegan meal,
Mm.
the Hindu meal,
Oh,
Wow.
kosher meal,
And you actually
Is that-
any of those.
Now, let me ask you: is that only for international, or is that for the
No.
company wide?
That's company wide.
Wow.
We've got like lighter
wish we would
choice
find a
beef,
way to do
lighter
something like
choice
that.
chicken, lighter choice seafood.
and you actually
know,
get it
they-
boarded onto the aircraft, and when you take off, you actually
Yeah.
your choices are there.
9 times out of 10, it gets boarded.
Wait, you guys are getting meals?
Yeah. He gets these little boxes.
Yeah, we'll call it a box.
Snacks. Jeez.
What kind of Cheez-Its are in that box, by the way?
It's some really crappy either prosciutto or some really dry salami. And
Prosciutto. Are you from New York?
prosciutto.
Is that like a
Are you from
parody?
New York or
it's a good
something?
prosciutto.
That's
Yeah,
the
it's
way
like
New
a
Yorkers say it.
prosciutto.
That's not Italians say it that way. That's the way New Yorkers says it. It's a prosciutto.
Anyways, it's
What's a mozzarella?
No, we don't even get cheese. We just get the meat. There's no crackers, no cheese, just meat. It's literally a package of meat inside there.
I think those are called Slim
That's
Jims.
it.
That's not prosciutto.
A lot of
That's a Slim Jim.
No, they're not a Slim Jim.
Hey, at least you get something. Turkey steak.
Wow, I just made myself disappear. You see that?
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, we get some snacks, but it has to be over 900 miles for us. It would be like what you guys would serve a first class meal under like 400 miles.
Yeah, it's just a snack pack. Unrefrigerated, unheated.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, no. You know, I brought this up in PLM. What is it? Professionalism, leadership, and mentoring.
Leadership and management.
And mentoring. Yeah. So we had our director, the Legacy Airlines director of flight, who came in and gave a little hour-long speech on how great the company is and how great we are and how great we're leaders and how it's up to us to mentor and be professionals and be a captain, basically. And for a moment there, he spoke about how it's up to us as captains to refuse airplanes if the optics of that aircraft are bad. What he means was, and he put up a photo up on the board of an airplane that was just riddled with speed tape. The nose, the behind the windscreen, everything. It was like, 30 square feet of speed tape on the nose of this aircraft. And it was a picture taken from the terminal. So the passengers, are in full view and they're like looking at this going, why has that airplane got duct tape all over it? So he says, this airplane might be legal. Maintenance might have signed us off, but are you as a captain going to accept this aircraft? Or are you going to tell the company, you're going to call, your duty chief, or you're going to call your chief pilot, or you're going to say, hey, this is unacceptable. The optics on this is terrible. And he, gave a pretty nice lecture on basically using your command authority to make good decisions, to make the company look good, and to make, if the company does well, then we do well, and all that stuff. And me being who I am, I raised my hand when he was finished speaking. And I said, speaking of optics, I just want to say you have a fantastic campus. This is my first time staying at this Star View, we'll call it. And I like the bikes and you get around campus. Everything looks really great. And he's like, oh, isn't it great? Isn't it fantastic? Have you been to the cafeteria? I'm like, yes, I have. And, the food there is actually very nice. I loved it. I said, but can we talk about crew meals? I understand during COVID, we were given a Reuben sandwich that was 9 out of 10 moldy, frozen solid by dry ice, or, just unedible. And I understand we had to make some serious cutbacks and changes to our protocols. But now that we have been back to normal now for over a year, we're getting the same chicken or beef. And 9 out of 10, they're not edible. I mean, maybe here in the corporate headquarters, when they present these meals for approval, they might be really good. He's like, but, out on the line, the reality is they're just unedible. And the process to use our contractual right to buy our own meal at the airport and then expense it whenever a crew meal is granted to us through our contract provisions and then unedible, that process in itself is extremely confusing and very difficult. And most people just give up and they don't do it. And I know it's by design. I get it. I understand business. But what are the optics on that you're not really care about what we're feeding our pilots en route? I mean, I actually don't feel well after I ate some of the food that you have the company present to us. I said, and on top of that, let's start looking at our crew rest facilities and our crew rooms at our bases around the system. They used to be pretty nice places to hang out between flights, to get maybe a couple minutes of rest between your next flight. And now there's nothing but broken furniture, and it's not, a lot of them are in bad shape. And I know there's a lot of changes going on and a lot of remodeling going on, but we got to keep that up. What are the optics on that? And I had a couple of people around the room look at me like, oh shit, Tony, dude, really? And
that's true. You got to tell the people in the decision makers.
Yeah. Well, he's the head honcho. And he says, well, I'm gonna email you. I'm gonna get some answers for you. And he goes, I do apologize. He goes, we know that there's a problem with the crew meals, but the way he explained it was, it's whatever your contract. You put it in your contract. You guys are about to sign a contract. This is a while back. You guys are about to sign a contract. Have a provision in there for your crew meal. Whatever the contract says, we will give it for you. Okay, but right now that's the contract, and that's what we're giving you. No more, no less. And he goes, but yeah, just fill out those expense reports. And we are a company, he said, that runs on data. And I know that Terry and Alex, you guys work for different companies, but I believe you guys can reiterate the same thing. All these airline companies work on data. So if you are not happy with a layover, a hotel, transportation, a particular uniform piece, something that the company's standard operating procedure maybe is not working, you have to submit the report, because this airline and every other airline that I know of works on data. So if they can't collect that data, you think, well, what's my one complaint gonna do? Nothing. They're still gonna serve me this crappy food. Yeah, but if they collect thousands of complaints about the same thing, then both the company and the union that represents the pilot group is going to do something about it. So it really truly is the squeaky wheel that gets the grease.
Maybe that needs to be treated more like fatigue. If pilots are calling out fatigued consistently on a particular segment, well, maybe the company needs to look at how they plan that segment and staff it with crews and times and duty days and that sort of thing. Well, maybe if the same sort of thing were to happen with pilots eating crew meals and then, oh, I'm not fit for duty because I feel like ass because that crew meal sucked.
Yeah.
Or it was spoiled, or I didn't get to eat it all. Then, maybe that's the data they need.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And usually
you're right. It is all data driven for sure. Yeah. Everything we do is data driven.
Yeah, absolutely. So just food for thought.
If it wasn't, good one. I like what you did with that one. But yeah, seriously, if it wasn't documented, it never happened.
That's right.
I mean, you can do what you did in class and ask the question to the head honcho that makes all the decisions. But unless he has data, it never happened.
Right.
It never happened.
And the funny thing is, excuse me, guys. The funny thing is, and all of you, I'm sure, that are on the social media stuff, which I have to admit, I've been paring back quite a bit. A lot of people go on the pilot pages. Every airline has these pilot pages, right? And there are these groups, these online forums, and I noticed that there's a lot of complaining going on there. There's a lot of, hey, what do I do with this? Or what form is this right? Does my pay look right to you guys? A lot of questions. Why not go to the source and just call Paycomp, send an email to Paycomp and go, hey, this is what I got. Can you explain it to me? That's usually what I do. Yeah. And 9 out of 10, they'll go, oh, okay, yeah, we are looking into it and we audited it and we made an error and the balance is going to be forwarded in your next paycheck. Or no, this is happening because of this. And now they're educating me on something, and I can always back it up with finding it in a contract or contacting a union rep, because those contracts are not easy it's all legalese,
Yeah.
So, but you have to go to the source. Don't sit there and complain about stuff online and then collect 1,000 sarcastic remarks that are 9 out of 10 intentionally incorrect in order to fish through to find an answer. It doesn't play well with me. I don't get it.
Yeah, those forums I think are a lot less useful than they are helpful. You get a lot of answers that are not correct. You know what I mean? They're misinformed with their responses. It's you're right. It's hard to. I think the intent is there to be helpful, but I think a lot of guys just guys and gals, I should say, are they want to help, but they're also just as educated about the contract as the person that's asking the question.
Yeah.
So I think the sources definitely contract compliance or management. Wherever you need to, wherever the answer needs to come from, it needs to go right to the source, just like you said.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to reach out. I mean, it's a phone call away or a text away. Sometimes if you know your union rep, like say your FO rep for your base, send them a text message. Going, hey, I got a question about this. When you get a chance, can you look at it?
I've been dealing a little bit with that with my, with the union. We call it Compass, Compass project, and so I sponsor new hires and help them navigate, the onboarding process with our company. And, I don't know everything for sure. I mean, there's way too much to navigate, but at least we have the resources, to get, if somebody asks a question, whether it's union wise, contract wise, or just company wise, we have the resources to get those questions answered. But, and people come up with really good ones. There's a lot of really, specific questions that, it's like, guys, I don't know the answer to that one. That's a really good question. Never experienced that personally, but, I know where to go to get that answer for you. So let's learn together.
Yeah.
But, asking it on a social forum is just asking for to get, ridiculed, or, people will just say stupid things on there. And sometimes you're not going to get the answer. Or if you do, it's going to be wrong. Although there are some times where the actual union members are actually monitoring some of those forums. And luckily they can give a real blunt answer, and it may not be what you want to hear, but they can be like, well, it says it here, this, if you go to the contract 2.I.C-G, colon, this,
hashtag,
this will give you the answer. So he may not tell you the answer, but he'll tell you where it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Like being ridiculed online is kind of like being ridiculed for having a brain fart and not knowing what a Zurich is.
Which is a way more interesting topic.
Only real captains will give you shit about that, Tony, but
damn straight.
There you go, Roger.
Well, Rob,
hey,
from a real captain to a restricted captain.
Don't give Tony crap. To be fair, I don't know much about Switzerland. I just know their flag is a huge plus.
That's funny.
Dude,
that's
Alex
a good
has got
one.
dad jokes too.
Alex.
Rob.
That's funny.
Oh, man. I deserve it.
Woo!
I deserve it.
Takes a hell of a day to stop sniffing glue. You like your coffee? Keep it black.
Rob, you were telling us about your low visibility takeoff. Tell me about that experience. I mean, that must have been pretty harrowing to do something like that outside of the simulator environment. Is that your first?
Yeah, well, just like I said in the intro, you go through your flight training and you get your instrument rating, and you start, training on, to eventually get to this point where, you're doing these low visibility takeoffs and landings. And, you go through the simulator training, and, we're doing these super low visibility takeoff, V1 cuts, rejects and stuff like that, rejected takeoffs, and learning about SMIGS lighting and, how to use those procedures. And here we are, the other day, I arrived into Denver the night before, and I remember looking at the TAF in Denver and seeing quarter-mile visibility forecasted for, this time period. And, I was like, man, I think we're kind of departing in the morning at that time. So we're going to have to keep an eye on the weather. And of course, before I went to bed that night, I kind of brushed up on my low visibility procedures and, requirements, and just wanted to make sure I
Like
was
a real
up to
captain.
I'm
speed on.
never going to live this down.
Yeah,
I'm
just
never
kind of
gonna
make
live
sure
it
we're up
down.
to speed legality
I was giving
wise
you a hard
what
time.
what I what we can do, because I was on the 734, and they have a lot lower takeoff minimums than we do on the Airbus.
Oh, really?
Because of the HUD. And so I was kind of initially getting my negative transfer training, happening when I first was like, man, what's our minimums? Is it 5, 5, and 5, or is it 3, 3, and 3? I couldn't remember. So thankfully we have, some manuals that help us out on there, but it comes down and our minimums are 5, 5, and 5. But so driving from the hotel to the airport that morning in Denver, it was kind of neat. I mean, it was like, it's not low visibility. I could see 10 miles right now. And the drive to the airport was only like a 15-minute ride. And sure enough, got to the airport, got dropped off. Of course, can't really see much in the departure area of the airport when you get dropped off, and then you go through known crew member, take the train out to our terminal. Got out to the terminal and looked outside. I was like, whoa, fog is here. Right on time, right on schedule, just like the TAF forecasted. Went down the jet bridge, looked out at the tail of the airplane, and that was all I could see. I mean, you couldn't see the terminal, across the way. Of course, we depart out of the C terminal out there in Denver. And, looking past the tail of the airplane, I was like, wow, there, you couldn't see anything. And I don't know how far away our tail is from the airplane, what the distance is, but it's got to be like 120 feet, 130 feet away, from the entrance of the airplane. And you can barely see past the tail. It's like, whoa, this is foggy. And so we got on board, and the fog was like in and out. Like the visibility would get low, and it'd be, within that hour it was like low, and then it'd come up. And I remember the sun starting to come up at that time too. So you're starting to get a little ambient light, which kind of helped with the visibility. And then finally, when we taxied away, you could see like the end of the ramp. So obviously the fog was in and out. And so we taxied out, and we were able to taxi almost all the way to the runway with good visibility. I mean, it was probably 3/4 of a mile. I mean, that's not good, but you can still see where you're going.
Yeah.
But when we got to the runway, which is in Denver, it's usually, out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
The visibility was down. And so I was like, okay, thank God, the dispatcher forecasted this. He had takeoff alternates in there. And I think our takeoff alternate was Colorado Springs. And they gave us, the RVR. They're like, hey, runway 3, I think it's the one on the west side. I think it's 3-5 right or 3-5 left. 3-6 left was the runway we were departing. RVR is 7, 5, and 5. You are cleared for takeoff.
Wow.
We lined up with the runway, and it was like the sim, man. It was that dark grayish feeling to everything. Everything's like just gray. Obviously because of the fog and the runway. The lights had the side lights, centerline lights, which is what's required. And man, here I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
Flex, thrust set, 80, check. V1, rotate, got in the air, and man, it was. It felt like if we had a reject, I had no clue how far down the runway we were.
Oh wow!
Other than on paper, we're supposed to, when we reject before V1, we're supposed to be able to remain on the runway, kind of like that balanced field thing. But man, we got airborne, and within like 200 feet, popped out of the clouds, and it's just that perfect layer of fog, covering the area.
What do you call that? Is that called
severe
Thule
clear
fog,
above?
or what is that called? Do you remember? The ground fog?
I don't even know.
It's like Thule fog, right? Isn't
Thule fog?
Thule fog?
Is that what it's called? I don't know. Convection fog? I don't even know.
It's usually ground fog.
Ground fog.
Ground fog.
Yeah,
Good one.
fog.
Good one, Roger. See, that's coming from a true captain right there.
That's right.
So
I want your intro.
I was gonna say, a real
I
captain would
all
know that.
capitals and restricted in your intro, by the way.
Restricted.
Yes.
that's actually funny.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that was the departure out of Denver. That was pretty fun. I mean, felt good to do that, but
Yeah.
whew, thank God we didn't have any.
Now you in the pre-show
it's
you
rare that
mentioned
do,
you mentioned that you weren't using SMIGs. The airport wasn't using SMIGs. Is that because the RVR
Yeah.
was really only a runway issue and the taxiing out was better
It
than
was on
that?
the run.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was in and out, initially, and then when we actually called for taxi, I mean, you could see, they say, I forget how they say it, but they, and exit out spot 5W. And then contact ground. Well, from the gate, you could see 5W easily.
Oh, okay.
Contact ground, all right, taxi to runway. I keep forgetting. I think it's 36 left. The, 2 taxiways, this and that.
Yeah.
And as we were taxiing out, I mean, you could see Terminal B, but there was definitely fog out there. I mean, you couldn't even see the runway that we were taxiing to, but you could see everything else. So
Yeah,
it was
that's
just
unique
low
about
visibility.
Denver. Yeah, they're on the plains, right? So they're out there in the plains.
Yeah.
And so you get out there and there's not much. It's like rolling hills and grass, for as far as the eye can see until at least the base of the mountains. And so, yeah, you can get a lot of that ground fog.
I think taxiing in that is harder than the actual take. I've actually taxied in Denver and horrible using SMIGs and having to go from the cargo ramp all the way out to, if you went to the west side, I think it's the 3-4 left and right. And so having to taxi all the way across up and then across the terminals, and it's all those pink, they're the pink, the pink
dots.
spots with
the dots.
the 4 whiskey or 5 whiskey
Numbers.
or whatever it is. Yep. And going one by one, crawling along. And this was back in my cargo days where we didn't have GPS, let alone any of this other stuff. But taxiing, I always thought was the harder part in the low visibility than the actual takeoff aspect. But
yeah, the arrival last night into Jacksonville, that was the experience I had. Jacksonville last night was we were running a little bit late, and the TAF was forecasting like quarter-mile visibility within a certain time frame. And as we got on I briefed the Cat 3 because the weather was just quarter mile. I mean, it really was really low. And thankfully, they had a Cat 3 approach to runway 8. So we briefed up the Cat 3 and planned on doing an auto land. And sure enough, man, we were on the approach, and it was kind of cool because I guess it would have looked like this if we were to arrive into Denver on that takeoff that we were in. But that fog was just really, really low. I mean, you could actually see the glow of the approach lights to the runway coming through the fog.
Wow.
On the approach. And so it was pretty cool to see. But I knew as soon as we got into that flare, or, shortly before the flare, that you'd lose all sight of everything. And so that's how it was. We got into the flare, touchdown, auto brakes came on. And that was the uncomfortable feeling, because when you do it in the sim, I remember the one scenario where we actually used SMIG lighting, in Seattle. When you decelerate, you look for the runway turnoff lines, and then, you follow those to the spot numbers and everything like that. They don't have that in Jacksonville. There's no SMIGs lighting. So as we decelerated, that got immediately uncomfortable, because I was like, I have no clue how far down the runway. You can't see the runway distance remaining signs.
Oh, wow.
And so I immediately went auto brakes off and pretty much did about an 80% effort deceleration with the brakes, because I wanted to get the airplane slowed to a speed where I can actually see a turnoff, which were very, very hard to see. And I missed the first 2 high speed turnoffs, which would have been ideal. So the next turnoff was a 90-degree turn. Well, like they always say in the textual things about taxiing, especially in low visibility, you need to reference your GPS speed on the PFD, because the sensation of my AirPods are getting ready to die here. The sensation of speed is almost gone. In the visibility, because you have no visual reference to how fast you're really going.
Okay.
And so when I came up to that turnoff, I looked down at my speed and I was doing like 15 knots. And so I was like, ooh, it was a 90-degree turn too. So I really had to kind of like pump the brakes a little harder again. So everybody's like, oh, and then I made the turn. And then as I got off the runway, I couldn't see anything. I mean, it was just center line, blue lights, no green center line taxi lights. It's just the blue,
the edge lights.
Edge lights as you're taxiing away.
Now, did you experiment with your lighting? Did you try using your turn-off lights instead of your taxi light and things like that?
Yeah, so I left my turn-off lights on and my taxi light on, and I found that the taxi light was better in the taxi mode instead of landing mode, because when you turn on the landing mode, it just illuminates a lot of the fog.
Right.
So you're just getting kind of whited out. So I left it on the taxi setting, and then I did use the what do they call the turn off lights? Right? Is that the switch that it's called?
Yeah.
For the 45 degree or so.
Right.
Lighting, just kind of illuminate whatever I can see.
The edges. Yeah.
The edges, but then the ramp area is really confusing there, and I kind of I didn't get on the controllers, but I had to tell them. I mean, they were like, yeah, they were really good up to where you got to the edge of the ramp, and I'd have to look at the taxi diagram just to be more specific on this, but they said report turning left on the taxiway. I don't know, let's arbitrarily Papa, which brings you towards the ramp. And they said, just pop it to the ramp. Well, Papa doesn't take us anywhere near our portion of the ramp.
Right.
And the diagram, some lines go into the ramp and some lines come off the ramp, but nothing really keeps you either on the ramp side, or nothing keeps you on the movement side of the ground side. And so I kind of had to stop. I'm like, dude, we're low visibility. I need better taxi instructions than pop it to the ramp.
Right.
They're like, well, once you get onto the ramp there.
Yeah. You're not their responsibility anymore.
Once you get on, yeah. I was like, no, I mean, the line doesn't, there's no taxi lines on the ramp once you leave Papa on the ramp.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I don't know where I can't get to my gate. From here, I mean, can I just stay with you on the taxiway, this, that, and this? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure, you could do that too. I'm like, well, that's what I'd rather do, because I can't see. I mean, it's 500 RVR.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I just stayed with him all the way around. So anyway, that was that story. It was pretty cool to be able to do that.
Nicely done.
So
very good.
Yeah, man.
Now,
I think I'm going to bail out on you here, because my AirPods are dying and it's getting late on me over here.
It's time for you to get your rest so you can be fit for duty tomorrow.
Crew rest.
Yes.
That's right, man.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about your experiences there in low vis. And, sounds like you had it all under control and didn't allow the controllers to just give you, go to the ramp, clear the ramp, get out of my hair kind of responsibility. And that's part of the job. It doesn't matter what seat you're in. You have to kind of sometimes insist on getting clarification.
And that was also another scenario where, the old saying is, the flight's not over till you get to the gate.
Right.
Well, we got off the runway and then we were dealing with a whole separate set of issues, with visibility and taxiing. So I'm glad we did it all safely and by the book. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
All right,
I know you're taking time away from your layover, and I do appreciate that. So thank you. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Good to be back, man.
Good to see you again,
You
Rob.
guys take care, fly safe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds great.
See you, Rob.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night. Now, Alex, you were telling us how you were staying home to getting paid. What's the deal here? And to add insult to injury, did you say it was premium pay?
I did say it was premium pay.
Okay, now walk us through this. Now, I thought you were in recruiting. What are you doing flying?
Okay, so I'm in recruiting. I'm in the office 4 days a week, and on the weekends we are allowed to pick up flying. So I have maximized this month of OT for pretty much every weekend that we've had weekend off. I've been trying to pick up as much flying as I could because, well, I need to get to that magical 750 mark because over here at Sandpiper, once you hit that magical 750 number, you get automatically upgraded to captain's pay.
Whether you can hold captain or not, you're telling me that at 750 hours of company time, you get captain pay scale.
Yes. So that's a 50% pay bump for myself. And I'm trying to get to that magical number because it'll make the paychecks a little easier, helping out with the bills and, this glorious house that I bought here to fill it and, all the wonders that go along with
the new
homeownership.
Podcast desk and all that stuff. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So all that stuff's starting to come slowly. I mentioned in the pre-show that I ordered my desk and the bookshelves and cases behind that I'm going to put behind my desk. Still need to get, the computer and the monitor set up and everything like that, but slowly coming together.
Nice.
But yeah, this trip that I was on was because I'm still an FO. If I happen to pick up with a captain who's a check airman, I still get displaced for IOE purposes. So this was a 3-day trip that got displaced for IOE purposes that I picked up for 150% for me to sit at home for 3 days.
Now, are you still, when you're displaced like that, can they give you a recovery obligation or they can
reassign you. They can reassign you. It just, there has to be a number of criteria. It has to match the footprint. It has to start within the same time, if not later. It has to end within the same time, if not earlier. It has to be basically, I wouldn't say a mirror, but it has to be almost a mirror of what you lost for them to get that to you.
I see.
And there was nothing available that would end me in those parameters over the 3 days that allowed me to stay home over the weekend.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
So, yeah, no, it's been nice. I definitely have been enjoying it. I'm about 40 hours away from that magical 750 mark. So the rush is on for me to try to pick up as much OT as I can to hit that 750 mark.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the month's pretty much over. I got 2 more days, but next month, the November month, I'm going to try to pick up what I can. So.
Now, I know you can't talk about what's going on in the recruitment over at Sandpiper because of the NDAs that you have signed, the non-disclosure agreements. Obviously, you don't want to open yourself up to any kind of liability of something you said. But we were talking in the pre-show on what we thought you could mention and to help out our listeners out there. Part of it is, how do you show up to an interview prepared? I mean, what's something other than the basic interview prep, get ready for some ATP technical questions, get ready for some hard line questions on like, why should we hire you? That kind of stuff, the kind of questions they ask to try to throw you off and see, if you got a head on your shoulders and can think outside of the box sometimes. But what are you seeing as like a little extra that maybe the modern day applicant can benefit from?
Well, so everybody out there can go online and there's a service. I forget what the website is, so don't quote me. I paid for it. I want to say it's like Airline Interview or airlineinterviews.com, something along those lines. That it's basically a forum, if you will, for the interview prep. But it's like, hey, what questions are they asking? What's the technical side look like? What's the HR side questioning look like? And If you study that gouge that's available to everyone, which is why I say I can talk about that. If you study that gouge and you study your JEP charts, which again is in that gouge, you're going to do well in our interviews. Like, that's the easiest thing I can say is if you come prepared and we can tell you're prepared, you did your homework. You did more than just the average Joe showing up to an interview and, I want to be a pilot. Like, what do I need to do to fly? Right?
Why you got to use Southern
if you
voice? What's up with that?
Because some of the people that we've gotten in the interviews that have not been successful, or even just the phone calls that we get on a daily basis, you'd be surprised.
Got it.
But
Noted.
if you just show up with the least amount or the least bit that you show that you studied and done a little bit more than just being a pilot, it's going to pay dividends in the long run, because we're going to see that. We're going to see that, you know how to prepare yourself for something that's unknown, like going through a 121 AQP program, and B, that your knowledge base is there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're not asking far off the wall questions. We're asking private commercial level, instrument level questions. It's like not too far out of the wheelhouse for most of the people that are coming into an interview.
Right. Now, you mentioned something that sparked a memory from way back when I was at Pan Am Flight Academy. They said that we here at Pan Am require that all our students get a private pilot level subscription to Jeppesen. And the reason we're doing that is because you can go ahead and get your instrument rating using government charts or NOS charts. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you're going to pass your check ride just fine. But what happens is our school, is what they were telling me, is 100% a preparatory school for the airlines. We want you to pass your interview. We want you to be able to transition to an airline seamlessly. So you're going to need to learn Jeppesen charts, because that's primarily what all the airlines have a contract with. So if you come in with a NOS chart and then I show you a Jeppesen chart and you're not able to explain what you're looking at, that's going to really reflect poorly on your interview. And you were mentioning in the pre-show that that's currently an issue with some people that have got their training done through different schools throughout the nation, and they're showing up and they're not able to answer some Jeppesen questions. Do you think that it's worth it for people out there to at least learn the Jeppesen chart phraseology?
I would definitely know the difference between what, like, on the NOS charts or the government charts, like the numbers, like the big number, the small number, right? They're called Naroka, right? On the JEP charts, they're called Amora, right? Like, know the different terminology between the two. Like, study your JEPs. Like you're saying, your flight school recommended that you get, for your instrument level training, like, get JEP charts. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Now, we all know that flight training is a tough pill to swallow as it is coming in, and you're spending $120,000 in debt to fund your flight training. And then you're looking at paying, I don't know what the base for flight level cost is now, but like probably $150 a year. And then I know the JEP charts are like $300 on top of that. But if you start from the beginning studying JEP charts, and your goal is to make it to the airline, well, guess what? That's half the battle of knowing the differences. Yeah. Knowing, how a JEP chart flows on the approach charts versus how it flows on the government charts. There's a world of difference. It makes a world of difference when it comes to the interview too. Again, everything that we have for our interviews, you can find online. Like, I'm not trying to say out there that we make it, easy for people to pass our interviews. I mean, we're tough. We're not passing people who aren't showing up prepared. But the information that we have that we're using, again, isn't far out of the commercial realm. The questions aren't far out of your knowledge. The struggle areas are when people don't come prepared and aren't reading. And there's a huge gouge I got when I was applying to SkyWest. They sent out an email when it came back with like a 400-page document of JEP charts and the differences and how to read them and how to apply their numbers versus the NOS charts. And they showed a side-by-side comparison of like, this is what you're seeing on a NOS chart. This is what you're seeing on the JEP chart. Like, here's the difference. SkyWest sent that out. I don't even know if I still have it. But like, I know that Sandpiper, they didn't do that, but because SkyWest did, it paid dividends in my Sandpiper interview.
I see. Now, Roger, are you using NOS charts or are you using ForeFlight or?
Yeah, we have ForeFlight with worldwide Jeppesen coverage. We got iPads with Jeppesen. We've got Jeppesen charts in the aircraft.
Okay. So even
I have not used a NOS chart in a long time.
Instructor days.
Probably Ameriflight days.
Oh yeah.
I think those were NOS.
NOS. Yeah. Not nitrous oxide systems for your car. No. Not NOS. Now, yeah. Terry, in terms of charts, and now that you're doing the wide body international flying, is there any real difference between some of the charts that you're having to reference going into like international places like Switzerland?
Is that in Germany?
It's touching Germany. They speak German in Switzerland. Just saying.
Only parts of it.
Yes, you're right. Thank you, Terry. Thank you. I appreciate you coming to my defense earlier. Thanks.
So there are some different things that you'll see, but that's kind of why these companies use Jeppesen as the standard. Jeppesen has one set of terminology that they use across the world, right? Whereas if you're using NOS charts, those are U.S. produced charts. They're going to be different from the government issued charts that you find in pick a country.
Right.
So Jeppesen having the single standard for worldwide coverage makes things a lot simpler. Now there are also, there's some other pages that you might have to reference, like for different airport procedures. So all these European airports have their own terminology that you'll use, have their own procedures. So like you're sitting at the gate, for example, in Zurich this last week, sitting at the gate, in order to push back, I had to call the apron. No, I had to call delivery and clearance delivery. And once they said, okay, understand you're ready, contact the apron on this frequency. Wait, so you're saying I have to call you when I'm ready to push, but you can't actually clear me to push. I have to call the apron to push.
Call when ready, right?
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's just differences in procedures. And then as far as like times, so there's like, it's called TOBT. I don't know what all these things. There's TOBT, there's just target, or TOBT, target off block time. Then there's target startup approval time. Then there's everything, because the airspace is so congested, they've got everything is timed. And if you don't hit your time, guess what? It's like an edict. You're going to go back to the back of the stack and you may be sitting on the ground for a little while. So, but yeah, the terminology is a little bit different. Jeppesen has these pages. I think they're the 10-1 pages where they list all of the different procedures for that particular airport. So, there's some studying, some reading you got to do before you head to the airport when you're sitting over there, or when you're sitting up at cruise for 7 hours. You got a little time to review procedures for the arrival.
Terry, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Jeppesen. I'm sorry.
I don't know if you realize your volume is modulating a lot. Like you get really, really quiet, and then you get loud, and then you get really, really quiet, you get loud. I don't know if you have like a noise reduction gain or on whatever. And I know it's getting late for you. Are you okay to go on for a little bit more? Another 10 minutes?
Yeah, I'm fine. I got what's today? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
No, today's Monday.
Let me see.
Today's Monday. Wednesday night, I've got a London trip, and we're leaving.
So you're
it's at 10 o'clock. 10 p.m. push. So
okay, so you're trying to change the clock? Yeah,
a little bit, not too much.
Okay. Well, Alex had to go. He's got to be in the office first thing in the morning with interviews. So thank you, Alex, for joining us. And I know that Kyle was going to try to join, but obviously he too had other pressing matters to attend to this evening. So thank you, gentlemen, all of you. So we're down to us three.
I got a question, Terry.
Shoot.
Is it true? Was this? Was it Alex was talking about this?
Alex was talking about it, yeah.
That there is some guy that is like finishing up IOE, new hire IOE, and has got a captain slot and is basically going to get off IOE and go right back to schoolhouse for upgrade?
So, yes and no. So the new contract allows for new hires to be awarded narrow-body captain.
Did the new contract still not get enough guys to move from the right seat to the left seat?
Not yet. Long story, short version is we don't have enough guys in the left seat on the narrow body. So the company would not move forward with the contract without some sort of provision to fill
guys in the left seat.
Yeah. And their backstop is this awarding captain to new hires. Now, there's a long road to get there. Like the company has to basically exhaust all possibilities first. And basically, number one, they have to completely implement the contract first. We're on an implementation schedule that goes out for like a year plus. For the different provisions in the contract, they can't implement that new hire narrow body captain provision until they've implemented every other section of the contract. So that's the first part. The second part is that they have to, before they can actually put a new hire who's been awarded captain in new hire training, before they can put that guy in the left seat, they have to lift every equipment freeze for every pilot that's in the company. So,
what's
for me,
the equipment freeze? Is it 2 years?
What's that?
What's the equipment freeze?
Yeah, it's 2 years.
Okay.
So, like, I could go, I don't know, if I wanted to bid back to 777, to 73 FO, I couldn't do that because I'm frozen, but they would have to lift all the freezes.
So let's just say that you bid for 7.3 captain, you still couldn't do it because you're seat locked in the 7.5, 7.6?
No, that I could do.
So you can't do that.
So for us, you can always move up.
Okay. But you
can move up to a bigger airframe, or you can move to the left seat.
Okay.
But like say somebody who is was on the 7.3 and moved up to the 7.5, 7.6.
Can't go back to the 7.3.
They would have to get their equipment freeze lifted. They would have to have their freeze lifted before they could move back.
From a bidding standpoint, if I got hired and I go through new hire and I just put in because hey, I want captain San Francisco or whatever it is, and I can hold captain that's just seniority order, right? Or I mean, it's just a seniority bid, right?
Yeah. So the guys who are getting it in new hire class. So I think this past week was the first week where they'd offered those positions, because we just had a vacancy bid that closed the week before where there's still captain vacancies.
And so these guys in new hire class just bid captain for whatever base it was, and they got awarded it.
Well, I mean, however many slots there were, I don't know how many slots there were. I hadn't seen. In fact, I haven't seen how many they awarded. But so let's say somebody were to get hired. Somebody starts class tomorrow, and they get awarded narrow body captain.
But can they bid? But they can't bid until you start class, right?
What's that?
Well, how would they get awarded captain if they haven't actually bid? Because, I mean, you can't bid until you've started class, right?
Right. So class starts tomorrow.
Yep.
You make your first choice, or you make your choice the first day of class.
Oh, and so they're
let's
basically
say
offering in class you can bid for left seat.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So
I got you.
And
Yeah.
so like if there are, let's just say there's 50 people in a class, they're going to have 50 seats, right? And those seats may be narrow body FO, they may be wide body FO,
Sure.
and then there may be
some captain.
5 of them that are narrow body captain, right? And if those 5 captain slots don't get filled as they go through seniority order of the class, as they're assigning equipment and base equipment and seat.
Mm-hmm.
If they get down to the numbers 46 through 50 and they haven't assigned those, guess what? 46 through 50 are all going to be narrow body captains. That's going to be their initial assignment.
Wow.
So
you guys are that short?
We're short. I mean, we're getting a new airplane delivered every 3 days. So yeah, we're short, but there's a long road to actually get to the left seat, right? So that person will get hired. They'll go through new hire FO training, 737.
Sure.
They have to fly. Well, number one, they have to meet Part 121 requirements, right? So they have to have 1,000 hours of 121 time total.
Done.
Most legacy applicants do. Okay.
Yeah, most do. So they have to have that. They have to have at least 350 hours in a transglobal aircraft. And then there are some other requirements, like it's not, I want to say it's 100 hours of OE. There are a whole lot more requirements that I don't even know, because honestly,
is this a new thing with the new contract? Right. That's why this is.
Yeah.
See, I thought that the new contract would have been enough to get some people to move, or enough people at least to move from the right seat and get them into the left seat. Because I think a lot of it was quality of life, as I understood it, from a reserve standpoint.
Yeah, it's quality of life, but there's also the implementation timeline, right?
So why do people not want to move from the right seat to the left seat?
So part of the reason is from guys I've spoken with. If you're a junior line holder captain, your line is being built to the contractual maximum, like 89 and a half hours. And then you are getting reassigned during your trip, reassigned a lot of times in your days off. And so I was talking to a buddy of mine who I actually flew with at one point on the 737, and he, we had a good trip. We went to San Juan and had a nice time on a 30+ hour layover. But I ran into him a few months later, and he's like, "Yeah, I haven't had anything to drink on a trip since that trip that we were on together." And this was like 3 months later. I'm like, "Really? What's going on? Trying to dry out?" I was just joking around. He's like, "I can't afford to be off my game one bit, because I'm flying, 89 and a half hour lines every month that are getting extended. get my days off rolled. Every flight's with a new hire. I can't afford to be off my game even one little bit.
Wow.
So I just don't drink on overnights anymore. And you know, that's one example, but captains are getting abused that much, and they don't want to do it anymore, and they bid off the fleet, or you know, bid back to the right seat, or I mean, it's indicative of
in your
issues,
opinion,
right?
If you had more captains, would that alleviate a lot of the problems? Because a lot of that sounds like a short staffing issue, right? That you need more captains so that you're not flying 90 hours and not getting reassigned. So if you actually had more captains, would that actually solve the problem that people are complaining about?
I think to a point, yes. The junior line holders are still going to get abused. The reserve rules,
are they still subpar?
You know, there wasn't.
You think?
They're better now. They've incentivized, or I guess the right word would be disincentivized crew scheduling from just abusing folks. Like, for example, I get an hour of ad pay for every time I'm called out on reserve, or for every time I'm on short call. I get an hour of ad pay until the new contract rules are implemented. And then like the guys on the narrow body fleets who have to serve field standby, they haven't put that on the wide bodies yet. If you're on a narrow body and you get assigned field standby, that's an hour of ad pay. So, you know, the new contract has some provisions in it to make it a little bit more painful, to make the company have to think twice, or the scheduler to have to think twice about, oh, do I really need to have 15 guys sitting short call reserve, or can I really get by with 3, you know? Because, I mean, you know, on the 7-3, everybody was either coming off of a short call or field standby, on short call or field standby, or they've been assigned short call or field standby for the next day. There was no long call. For all intents and purposes, there was no long call.
Exist.
Right. I mean, in theory it did, but
in practice it was.
In practice it did, yeah.
Wow.
So the new contract changes some things and makes it a little more painful for the company to do things like that, which will help. There's still some rules that didn't go away. Like we had a provision, if you were a reserve in a visiting base, and you're waiting to fly your last leg home, which is a deadhead, that you were at the top of the assignment list. Ahead of all the reserves in that base, you were at the top of the assignment list.
Oh, that's awful.
Which, yeah. So, you know, it just, there were a lot of things like that have been changed now. They just need to implement everything. I think once the implementation comes along a little bit more, and some more of these provisions get implemented, we'll see some more people choosing to upgrade. We already saw it on this, the most recent vacancy bid we had. There were, I counted just for my base and equipment, there were 15 people senior to me who bid off of 7576 FO to narrow body captain. So, you know, it'll come, I think. And I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen whether any of these folks who have been awarded narrow body captain in new hire training, you know, we won't know for, right. We'll actually see it before they finish a year on property.
What's the pay provision on that? So let's say they were awarded captain and they go through their IOE and they do their 100 hours of IOE and all the other provisions, but then there's not a spot for them right away. So they have to continue to fly as a first officer, say for another 6 months. Do they get paid captain pay throughout that whole time?
No. So they go through FO training, IOE, and then they have to go back. You know, once once their number comes up, they would have to go back to the training center, go through upgrade training, go through the full upgrade qual course, then go through their 100 hours of OE, and then could get signed off. So as far as pay goes, they won't actually start getting paid as a captain until, I believe, I just saw a email from the union the other day. I think it is once they start upgrade training, or somewhere very close to that.
So once they're in training, they start to get paid. But if they're withheld from training for 12 months, then it's not like they're getting paid captain pay to be an FO, even though they were awarded.
Right.
Yeah. So you got to read the fine print. There's obviously protections for the company as well. And, if you hear about these upgrades coming fast from different carriers, which we've heard this happening at other carriers in the past, especially the ultra low cost carriers, where they're like, oh yeah, did you hear about, street captains? But yeah, you got to really, first you have to, Terry, you bring a lot of riveting information. Thank you for sharing this with us, because first you have to ask yourself why. Because if everything is, if all the cogs are spinning in the correct direction, why would you have a street captain? Why aren't people upgrading? That's a question. Quality of life is a lot of what I was hearing from what you're telling us is that's not there in most cases, especially with junior pilots in those respective seats. And the second question is, well, okay, just because you're awarded captain doesn't mean you're going to get paid as a captain. So it's kind of like dangling a carrot.
Yeah. And to be honest, I will be surprised. I mean, I may be eating my own words here 12 months from now or 9 months from now or whenever, but, I would be surprised to see any of those folks who were awarded narrow-body captain new hire training. I'll be surprised to actually see them in the left seat prior to hitting 1 year on property.
Yeah.
The folks who are getting it today, well, the company has, I believe it's about a year left to implement all of the provisions. And they can accelerate that, but until they implement all the provisions of the new contract, they can't actually send that individual to training.
I see.
So unless the company decides to implement provisions of the new contract earlier than agreed to, which is fine, earlier is better, right? But unless they decide to do that, then the earliest one of those folks who got it last week will go to training is a year from now.
I see. But still, I mean, 12 months on property for an upgrade, that's still pretty darn good. I mean, we're doing that now. I just got off probation and this last vacancy bid, there were folks from like 4 or 5 guys from my class who bid for captain. So narrow body
and got awarded.
Yeah. What's the junior base there at Transglobal?
On the captain side, I would say, I honestly don't. It's San Francisco or Newark, one of the two.
Yeah, one of the left or right side. Yeah. But we mentioned all this. We mentioned the schedule optimization at the beginning of the show. We talked about the stress involved with the flying and flying with new hires and a lot of movement. And what you're telling us is a lot of the same thing. It's like, being reassigned, being at top of a junior man list or a reserve priority list if you're flying through out of base. All of it adds up, and it adds up in a very stressful way. I mean, we're already known as aviators, whether it's general aviation or 121 operation or cargo operation, it's irrelevant. It's as aviators, as professional pilots, we're known for handling stress under a high stress environment. But this is different. When you're dealing with quality of life, it goes beyond the cockpit. It goes beyond what's required for the job. It now affects all aspects of your life. sometimes it affects your family, your marriage, your other businesses, your other hobbies. And when it starts to trickle and spill over into those aspects of your life, your quality of life suffers. And it's very stressful out there. Now, every podcast out there that is aviation related in the next few weeks is going to be talking about an event that happened very recently. We all kind of saw this coming through the news feeds. It went viral. And we're not going to dive into it because we're not medical professionals here. We're just a bunch of knuckleheads that don't even know where Zurich is. That's me. I'm talking about me. And, so we're just a bunch of knuckleheads here, but it's very serious, this profession that we do. And when one of us in the profession has a meltdown, a breakdown, it spills over onto all of us. And before we wrap it up today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened and about what we can expect in the future. And here's a report from ABC News, I'll put a link in the show notes, about pretty much the gist of what happened. I don't want to dive too much into the details.
We turn now to the pilot who authorities say tried to crash a passenger plane over the U.S. Tonight, new details of the life and death struggle inside that cockpit and what that pilot now says he took before that flight. He's now charged with 83 counts of attempted murder. Here's Gio Benitez.
Tonight, Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph David Emerson looking emotional, appearing before a judge late today to face attempted murder charges for trying to crash a passenger jet.
Enter a not guilty plea on all counts.
As we learned, he allegedly told investigators he had taken psychedelic mushrooms for the first time some 48 hours before the incident and thought he was having a nervous breakdown after going without sleep for 40 hours. Authorities say Emerson was off duty, hitching a ride in the cockpit's jump seat Sunday. The on-duty pilots telling police Emerson engaged in casual conversation. But then mid-flight, he threw his headset across the cockpit and announced, "I am not okay." Then reaching up and grabbing the red fire handles and pulling them down. A pilot physically engaged with Emerson for 25 to 30 seconds. Had Emerson pulled the handles all the way down, the plane would have turned into a glider within seconds. Emerson calming down and exiting the cockpit, allegedly telling a flight attendant, "You need to cuff me right now or it's going to be bad." Emerson, a father with an unblemished flying history, telling police he struggled with depression and a friend recently passed away. And it was his first time taking mushrooms. And David, Emerson is also facing a federal charge of interfering with a flight crew, along with those 83 counts of attempted murder. David.
Gio Benitez back with us on this story again tonight. Thank you, Gio.
Okay. So again, that is from abcnews.go.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. Pretty scary. Now, this happened, and I was flying, and within 24 hours, everybody was talking about this at some point, and we were kind of joking around in the cockpit. I did have a jump seater the very next day. And my FO turned around and said, "Hey, you guys, you're not taking any mushrooms, are you?" I mean, and then I looked at him like, "Really, dude?" And he's like, "Too soon?" And I'm like, a little bit. But it's funny. I get it. Because it's ridiculous. You never would think that a responsible professional pilot would decide to ride in a jump seat under any kind of influence, because you put yourself at risk. Where Alex was just talking about $120,000 in education, years and years of difficult check rides and passing all this stuff. And I don't know any pilot that would be so willing to throw it all away by putting themselves at risk for losing it all because they decided to ride in a cockpit jump seat under the influence. I mean, it's just not right. Now, this pilot, as the report mentioned, was struggling with depression. And this is where we here at Squawk Ident want to pick up this story. We've had people going through our SIMS program on the show. We've had a director of the SIMS or the HIMS program. I'm sorry, did I say SIMS? I did. We've had on the show here a pilot that was struggling with being an alcoholic, and he went through the HIMS program. And we have had the director of HIMSS program for Sandpiper on the show. We've spoken out about this on a multitude of podcasts about the help is always available to you. Just because you're a pilot doesn't mean you should hide. You know, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling like your life is falling apart and your personal life, your professional life, it doesn't matter. There's always help. You're a person. You're not a robot. Robots aren't flying these airplanes, at least not yet. AI is not flying these airplanes. We are people with feelings, emotions, I mean, everything. And none of us are perfect. None of us. And it's always important to make sure, as the three of us are all professional pilots that have been doing this for many years, over 2 decades, if not more. And we've seen and learned from many of the pilots that we've flown with that have been doing it for 3 and 4 decades. There's always help. There's always a chance. And if you ask for it, it's amazing how many people immediately come to the rescue, come to help. Earlier, Rob was talking about he's a Compass project mentor for the new hires. We have multiple Compass projects over at Legacy Airlines. One has to do with mental health, not just for you, but for your family. It's not just for pilots, it's for the pilots' families, because when your family is struggling, the pilot will struggle too. If your daughter or son is struggling, you as a pilot will struggle as well. So make sure you reach out. You have EAP. Every employer in the US has an employee assistance program. Usually it's someone from the company. You call an 800 number, a hotline. You say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. And we usually within hours, if not a day or two, you get a response and you have a medical professional or a financial professional, whatever it is, contacting you, because the services are very plentiful. Most pilots feel like, well, I can't talk about this because I'm afraid they might take away my medical. I mean, how many times you're like, well, I don't know if I can take that medication because I'm a pilot and I don't know if I can take that medication. Well, do you know? You could always call your AME. I've called my AME multiple times going, hey, I'm getting some sinuses and I know I can't take Benadryl, but can I take this? Usually he'll respond, especially if it's office hours, he'll respond within the hour and say, no, you can't take that, or try this instead. Every doctor I know would rather you call them before the fact and get a clear answer than after. Don't go on Facebook and ask, hey guys, can I take this medication? Does anybody know? You're not going to get speculation and opinion. You're not going to get the answer from the horse's mouth. If you're struggling with depression as well, I mean, ask for help. Most pilots that are struggling, that are on some kind of FAA-approved medication are fine. So why not ask for the help? Now, what we wanted to say about this incident is, like sleep apnea, there have been many reports out there that said, pilots, obesity is a problem with pilots, and a lot of obese pilots have sleep apnea, so we're going to measure their BMI, and we're going to, during their FAA medical, they're going to get asked questions about sleep apnea. And anybody that fails the questionnaire needs to get further review from a sleep doctor, and they have to go in for some testing and to see if it's a problem, if they need a breathing machine at night. What's it called?
A CPAP machine?
CPAP.
Yeah. So some pilots, they can keep their medical with a restriction that they have to have a CPAP with them. So in their bag now they have to carry a CPAP. So when they sleep at night, they have that. They can still fly, but they just have to do this one thing. So there are changes that have happened over the last few years in regards to sleep apnea. Now, most of us go, yeah, nope. And doctor goes, all right, thumbs up. Here's your first class medical. Others might have some further testing to have. I guarantee you, after this latest event and the event that happened in Denver with the pilot and the crash axe, or the axe in the gate at the parking lot, there's a lot of this happening, hitting the news. This one was particularly dangerous because it could have led to a complete fatality of everyone on board. I guarantee you something's going to happen. There will be some kind of legislation passed that has more questions that you're going to be asked at your FAA medical examiner. Now, is you're going to sit in a room with a spotlight and they're going to show you the Rorschach test and go, what do you see here, Roger?
A cow.
Oh, that's very healthy. Oh, a cow. That's a fluffy cloud. You know, not clowns and murder and blood. Oh, okay. That's good. So,
Chucky.
So that's not practical, but you may be asked some questions here in the near future, maybe in 2024, on your first class medical exam. Have you ever thought about hurting yourself or others? Anything more than that, I doubt it. But do you struggle from any kind of anxiety or depression? Have you ever sought help? You know, that kind of thing. And that's okay. You can ask me any question you want. That's just part of the game. But I think that's the most that's going to come out of incidents like these, because I don't think we've seen the end of it. Now, here's a question for the two of you, and for those listeners out there that are still with us, thank you for listening. Have you ever sat in the jump seat and looked at one of these red guarded buttons or red handles and thought to yourself, I could pull those right now. I could do that, and have that fear that, like, oh, I better not go near. I don't even go near that button. That's a dangerous button. Have you guys ever had that thought, be it fleeting or just inconsequential? Just have you had a thought like that?
Oh, I mean, I can say for me, the answer is no. But I think it's also the fact that he was in the jump seat is kind of irrelevant. I mean, he's on his way to go to work to sit in, I think he was a captain, the left seat, the right seat. In this case, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you could be a pilot. I mean, he was not an active crew member on that leg.
No.
But he's going to work to become an active required crew member on another flight. What's the difference between sitting?
Actually, I think he was actually returning home.
Was he returning home?
He lived in the Bay Area. I think he was a Danville resident. He lived in the Bay Area, and he was returning home after visiting family and friends.
Okay.
So he wasn't going to work.
Regardless, you're on the jump seat because you can sit in the jump seat because you are an authorized crew member to be able to be a required crew member on a flight. And just because you're on the jump seat in this case really is, I think is inconsequential, right? Really, because who's to say that if I'm the FO or if I'm the captain that I can't pull those red fire handles? No, I can't. I mean, I can't even say that that's remotely crossed my mind. Which probably has to be my answer, but in this case is also the truth. Unfortunately, like, pilots are human beings. Like, if you just look around, I think that even before COVID, but I think COVID exacerbated it maybe a little bit. And also there's a bigger focus on it, mental health as a whole. It doesn't matter what job you do, whether you're a pilot or a fast food worker or a doctor or a lawyer, an attorney. It doesn't matter. Like, this is a real thing. And like I said, pilots are human beings. We are no different than anyone else. Sure, we make it in the news when something stupid happens like this, or when the guy takes a crash axe to a parking gate. This isn't the first time it's happened. I think it was about 10 years ago in Europe, that guy crashed that plane.
Oh, yeah.
That was a while ago. I mean, this has happened. Unfortunately, these are spectacular events. No, we haven't seen the end of it because we're human beings, because this is something that we deal with as the human race. And therefore, I mean, is there a solution to it? No, there's not. Just like a lot of evil things in the world, whether it's, somebody doing something crazy like this, whether mushrooms were involved or not. The crazy mass shootings that we have, again, those people are not, I would say 9 times out of 10, those people are not in their right minds when they make that decision to go pull a red fire handle, or whether to take an assault rifle onto wherever they happen to go and wreak havoc on society. Like, it's horrible, it's terrible, but it seems to be like it's what the human race is now, and you can't, like, there's no way other than just flat out not flying or not going out. You can't escape the human condition, unfortunately. And I think really for me, the saddest part is, I mean, the fact that I even have to utter those words, that this is where we're at right now. I mean, that's heartbreaking to me. Don't get me wrong, but that's also, this seems to be, to me, the unfortunate reality.
Yeah, you remember when JetBlue flight attendant was like, "I'm done, I'm out of here," and he popped a couple beers, opened up the door, activated the slide, and jumped out and quit right then and there with passengers on board. It was sensational. It made headlines. He ended up going to court. He got sued by the company. He was prosecuted by the FAA for abandoning his station. It was illegal to do as a flight attendant. But at the time, there were so many interviews and commentaries about, hey, this is going to happen more and more. We're going to start seeing this more and more, because all the doctors and professionals were saying that, you know, with stress going up and the anxiety that is associated with the fact that we have these computers in our pockets that are feeding us all kinds of doom and gloom. And, you know, you heard the term doom scrolling. I mean, that's all most of us do, is we're scrolling the news in our older years. Younger people like watching TikTok dances and stuff and seeing, prank videos. But as you get older,
I look for cat videos. So
yeah, cat videos are good.
Very popular,
especially, you know, cats driving cars. I like that one. But you know, there's all this other stuff that we're being bombarded with, and yeah, it's scary, and not just adults. They're teens and tweens that are being bombarded by all this news as well. Well,
everything is bad news, and when you go to the younger generations, everything that they're reading is telling them that they're not good enough. They're not pretty enough. They're not smart enough. They're not good enough. They're not something enough, and that it's just them, which is hogwash. It's bullshit, is really what it is. But that's what we feed everybody who goes and scrolls through their phones on Instagram or Facebook or TikToks, or, I mean, whatever it is, it's fake. It really is. But what we consume is not news. It's entertainment. And what we consume or post on Facebook is not reality. That's what we want to project to everybody. It's the best of everything. You know, it's what we want people to believe. But then we actually see that and consume it, even though it's complete and utter crap. Sorry.
No, that's your point is very well received, Roger. Thank you so much. I mean, that we are being bombarded. It's not just our kids that are being bombarded by all this. We are too, and it's going to come out. You know, enough is enough. Now, there are other associations out there. I know that American Airlines and Delta Airlines and Alaska all have these mental health committees for their employees, not just pilots, flight attendants, gate agents, all of them, rampers. And Dennis Tager is the communications committee chairman over at the Allied Pilots Association. He was recently joined by Lisa Dent to discuss why it's important for pilots to undergo safety training to deal with mid-flight incidents like these. This is a story that followed the off-duty Alaska pilot who allegedly tried to cut off the engines. And it's from WGN Radio 720. Let's listen in. Let's go.
720 WGN, thanks for joining us. You probably heard us talking about the off-duty Alaska Airlines pilot yesterday, or I'm sure it's come across your feed or you saw it on the news. This is the person who was charged with attempted murder after trying to shut down the plane's engines. Steve reported earlier today that it has now been shown that he was high. He was on mushrooms, of all things. This is
according to court documents filed. That's what the prosecutors are alleging.
And do they call it high, or do they call it hallucinating, or they call it tripping?
They said they didn't call it tripping. They said he was on psychedelic. He had taken psychedelic mushrooms.
Holy smokes! Not what you want your pilot to be doing. Here's audio from the cockpit yesterday.
I'll just give you a heads up. We've got the guy that tried to shut the engines down out of the cockpit. And he doesn't sound like he's causing any issue in the back right now. I think he's the dude. Other than that, we want law enforcement as soon as we get on the ground and park. The threat is now in the back of the airplane, so we're reduced on the threat level. We're going to check in with the flight attendant to make sure everything is running smoothly, but it seems like he settled down as soon as he moment of going a little bit overboard, we put him in the back. So it escalated to a 4 for his event, but he's out of the cockpit now. He's handcuffed and he's an aft back jump seat when law enforcement arrives, and right now he's staying calm.
That's audio from the cockpit. Obviously, that audio was released yesterday. It didn't happen yesterday. Dennis Tager is our guy. We always reach out to Dennis. He's a spokesperson for Allied Pilots Association. You've got to think this is the craziest story you've heard about in your career, I would imagine, just like we feel. It's just nutty, isn't it?
Well, it's a tough one, but I got to hand it to those two pilots. And there's two pilots up there for a multitude of reasons. Some talk of just bringing it down to one. But those two pilots averted absolute tragedy. So compliments to them, the flight attendants who ensured that threat was secure in the back. And I can't imagine, other than those pilots, I can tell by their transmission, were going through the checklist, the procedures, the training. So, we're going to probably focus on the perpetrator. We cannot lose sight that the system caught this. And two pilots made a difference the day before last.
Yeah, absolutely. Dennis, they said they would rate it a 4. There's a scale of security issues or danger issues when you're a pilot?
We're trained, and it's a sensitive space, and I'm not allowed to talk in great detail, but I can assure you that what they relayed is the highest level of threat to the airplane. It doesn't take anybody to know any deeper information and know that it's about protecting the flight deck, and that was obviously through a different platform penetrated. So, and just to know that everybody, including the air traffic controllers, was executing their training, and every pilot out there knows what that training is. And as tough as it was to listen to this, being there in the foxhole with them, I had this swell of, great job, guys. You did it. You're doing what we're supposed to do.
Dennis, not everyone was following their training. I mean, that pilot certainly had been trained as well. And just explain for us, if you would, how it is that he came to be in that jump seat. I mean, it's a related airline, but would those pilots have known each other? Would he just have presented credentials, or how does it work that someone can, perhaps unknown to the pilots, be in the cockpit?
Well, there's never anybody unknown on the flight deck. You know, that comes through the captain. I'm the captain on the 737 American, and there's strict, not just protocol, but procedures for security. So who's going to sit up on the flight deck is scrutinized heavily right on down to the moment. So long story short, though, we're finding out more details. I know you highlighted some of it, supposedly through court documents. The pilot that was involved in this, and we know from the federal government, you know, this is not a global effort. It was an individual who had come undone under whatever reason. What supposedly this taking of illicit drugs, the psychedelics, if that is in fact true, is it combating some other mental health issue? We're going to find all that out. I mean, we watch the papers just like everybody else, but that jump seat, that's a critical part of our safety machinery. A pilot on that jump seat, while they may be getting a ride to get to work or to get back home, there are myriad of incidents that have happened that have been the difference between serious events and it just being handled. Is a jump seater seeing that. You call it back of the scene. You're away from the actual event. And I brief my jump seaters all the time. Listen, if you see something, say something. You tendency to see more than we do. So it's a lot of words to say. It's an important, critical safety measure to have that extra pilot up there when it's afforded to us. And they're only up there if there are no seats in back.
No, yeah. Look, I mean, I'm not being critical at all. I'm hoping to get a further understanding. I mean, is it likely that the pilots knew by face or by name the jump seat pilot before, or they said, we've got a pilot for Alaska Air who's on board who needs a seat. Can you put him up there? I mean, I'm just, again, Dennis, I'm not trying to say anyone did anything bad here. I'm just trying to understand how well they might have known each other or how it was that the pilot gets there.
Oh, great question. Not no offense taken. We want to know more about this. Now, it's possible the pilots didn't even know them. I get jump suiters on my aircraft that I've never met before, but their credentials are checked. They have to be an active pilot. They've gone through it. The gate agents actually screen through that. Then they have to meet, my approval to go on. So I don't have any more information on this situation, but I can jump seat on other airlines. It's something that's been in the business for as long as the business has been around. But the checks are done. Clearly, if there's somebody on your jump seat and something is not seem right, I as captain can say, hey, we're gonna have to just take a break here and address this. And then
so, Dennis, he attempted to shut down the plane's engines. If he succeeded, would the two pilots in control have been able to fire them back up and stay at the altitude where they were?
Well, fortunately, we don't have to have talked about that. Yes, you can restart engines. It's not just that simple, though. It's a lot of distraction, and who knows what else would be going on the flight deck. It's enough to handle a dual-engine flameout, as we call it. In this case, it's induced by this attack. But it's not... just turn them back on. We're good to go. Okay. Fortunately, the pilots were able to take quick action and restore what the jump seater had done, and the engines never took a break in service. And those switches they pulled, they cut off the fuel and everything. So it had to be seconds that these two pilots not only combated this individual, but restored the airplane before something worse happened.
And that is why he is facing attempted murder charges.
I'm not an attorney, but I'm sure that's why it makes sense. There's 80 plus people on board, 83, whatever it was. Each of those individuals was under threat of loss of life in that, and it doesn't take an attorney to figure that out, or a pilot. It was a very serious event.
Well, I think that you started out this conversation by saying this is the exact reason why we should always have two pilots on every flight. Are we in danger of losing that at some point?
There are those who are exploring that. It's we all know technology is advancing, but what those folks who are interested in the commercial interest, one less pilot, hey, it's one less person to pay, and we have a shortage of them, think that this is the solution. There's more than just monitoring the system on the computer that pilots are doing when flying the aircraft. We are there as double layers of safety and security, and we've got it all on the line just like our passengers. So those who are trying to push that and showing us sci-fi movies and the surreal activity of computer technology, stand back, because there are things the computer can't think of, and two human beings up there can make the difference between, I'll be blunt, life and death.
And you know what? I applaud everyone for the transparency, because they have been forthright with all of the details about what happened. And I think that gives us another level of comfort, saying, all right, they're being on the up and up with us. And obviously the man did have a mental break, even to choose to do psychedelics in that position means that you are, you're in a situation you shouldn't be in.
And if I may, you hit on something that's really important in this. Is in fact, obviously, it mentally came undone momentarily over a period of time. The mental fitness for pilots, this is one of those things that the FAA has not taken enough action on and supporting. Fortunately, unions like my union, APA, and American Airlines, we have a gold standard for pilots to reach out if they're going through some issues and they need a place to go. But most pilots are just worried to death about, am I not going to be able to fly and not be able to provide for my family? And when you're in a mental crisis or building to one, if you don't get help early on, the consequences are really serious. And I'm not saying it's something like this, but I mean at a personal level. So the FAA has stepped out of the 60s and jumped into the 90s. We got to keep pulling them along because it's just not the mental that's up there. It's the people that keep this safe. So we've got a lot of work to do. And we're going to make sure that we're not just looking at this, we're not just machines up there. So post-pandemic, we're flying more. The schedules are loaded up. There's no flexibility. It puts a real stress on things. It is not an excuse for these types of horrific actions.
Right.
But the amount of pressure is tough.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dennis.
Thank you.
Dennis Tager, spokesperson for the Allied Pilots Association. Steve's News is next on 720 WGN.
Well, there you have it. Interesting commentary about what we do. He couldn't talk about the security threat levels. I was kind of shocked that they actually aired the voice recorder information, including that, because that had to be released from the company. And that's not something that I personally think they should have done. They could have bleeped that out or something.
I think it was all captured on live ATC anyway, so it was already out there.
Yeah, Roger is pointing out something, ABC News. The flight was en route to Everett, Washington. From Everett, Washington to San Francisco, where it diverted to Portland. The airline said Emerson was scheduled to be on a flight crew for a 737 leaving San Francisco, according to... So he was going to work. And it's interesting from that story as well that when he left the cockpit, he told the flight attendant, "You need to tie me up." So it sounds like, and I feel bad for the guy. All kidding aside, I know I've heard so many jokes and I've seen so many memes earlier. Before the pre-show, we were putting up memes about the situation. I mean, the internet was riddled with memes from Hannibal Lecter in the jump seat to all kinds of stuff. And it's funny, but I really honestly feel bad for this individual. Because it could happen to anybody,
I know some folks who, I guess this guy was a simulator instructor at Alaska. And I know some guys who trained with him and they're nothing but great things to say about him. And so, they're very much in shock, about what happened and how everything went down. The whole mental health crisis and the FAA's response to it, the way that they handle it, it's not okay. The FAA's got a long way to go. There still is a lot of stigma within the FAA about mental health issues. So,
yeah,
I know, Tony, you were saying it's that there's always somebody to go talk to. You're never alone, and you should go talk to somebody if you need to. At the same time, it's, you look at, well, that's my livelihood. If I go talk to somebody now what? So it's I wouldn't want to be in that position. I'll say it like that. The FAA's got some room to grow.
But I would also say that's not just the FAA. I mean, obviously this is an aviation podcast, but it's hard. The FAA. Yes, I think that they have some growth in a lot of things, but in this particular area, that would be the FAA leading the entire world in mental health, because it's not, the FAA certainly doesn't know what to do with something that is a problem that goes way outside only aviation. This is something that we have an issue. I mean, if you just go outside, I know, where Tony lives or where I live, you can go see people with mental health problems any time of day, and you don't need to go more than 2 blocks down the road. And that has nothing to do with aviation. And we as a society as a whole have no idea how to address that. And so I would say that the FAA, this is not something like, the FAA has no idea what to do with it, because no one can give them guidance, because we as a society as a whole can't deal with it. And the FAA is definitely not going to be the leading authority or anything when it comes to this, because it's just something that we have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of money that it would take, for whatever reasons that this is such a bigger deal now, I can't even begin to fathom that's something that we have no solutions. No one knows what to do about it right now. I mean, you could throw oodles and oodles of money at it, of which we don't have, on, a city, state, country, national, world level. But this is not something that is a pilot thing. This is not a California thing. This is not a United States thing. This is an international thing that we have no clue.
It's a human thing.
It is. It's the human condition.
Human thing. And, the FAA is a regulatory agency. They're here to put out regulations for things for you to follow. They're not a healthcare agency. Now you get into the Aeromedical Board. That's where there needs to be something addressed with what's going on with this recent event and all the events that are happening in succession over the past few years. I'm sure a global pandemic had something to do with it. I'm sure a global economy that has inflation at record numbers has something to do with it. And I'm sure that modern day society has something to do with it, and it's going to affect us. And yes, the FAA is a regulatory agency. It's doubtful that they will even admit that there's an issue, because then there opens up a liability that, oh, you knew and you did nothing. So let's find out what the Aeromedical Board's going to do to kind of try to have something in there. My guess is they're going to have something in there, a questionnaire that you're going to have to answer. That way they remove themselves from the liability of, well, you gave this guy a medical and he wasn't mentally fit. We live in a litigious society, and unfortunately that's, money and the law are what make this society continue and go and operate. And so it's a shame. And Roger's absolutely right. We don't have a homeless problem in this country. We have a mental health problem in this country. And a lot of it is stemmed from the availability of potent psychedelic drugs, for which some people take voluntarily to just try something. And who knows? We don't know what happened. The guy clearly, some of the news articles that we were reading say he had recently lost a friend and he wasn't doing well. And under the same breath, in the same article, they're talking about how he used to be a mentor at schools and give demonstrations about being a pilot to young children. And he had young children of his own. He was a family man. His neighbors were shocked to hear. And who knows? Maybe he was hanging out with a friend, and his friend said, "Hey man, try this. It'll take an edge off." He's like, "Oh, okay." I mean, who knows? We weren't there. We don't have no idea. And this is what stems from that.
Not to mention the 40 hours of apparently not sleeping.
Well, he took the mushrooms 3 or 45 hours prior, and
he did that, and then that's what theoretically caused
kept
the not
him awake.
sleeping.
Yeah, and combined with the effects of that and the not sleeping. Yeah,
I think that begs the other question for me is like, okay, so now we've hauled him into court and we're charging him with 83 counts of murder, which I get, but I also, is this the way that we as a society deal with assuming that this was a mental break from everything like Tony you just said. Okay, everybody has nothing but glowing things to say about the guy. He's got a blemish-free record. He's been nothing but an exemplary pilot, nothing on his record, and all of a sudden something happens and we haul him off into court, but in the same breath going, he had a mental breakdown. So he had a mental breakdown, let's charge him with murder?
We don't care as a society. We don't care.
And that, I think, is exactly what I'm saying.
I drive to your house and I pass how many tent cities on overpasses? I mean, we don't care. How do we allow people to just put up tents on the freeway? I mean, on the sides of the freeway. They do.
Because we don't know what to do.
Right. And we're not going to throw money at it. We're not going to build them tiny homes because they just burn them down. Why? Because mentally unstable individuals end up on the street sometimes when they don't have the help, resources, and family. And that's the real problem with this U.S. And here we are trying to solve the world's problems just like we do on the flight deck every flight, right? We don't have the answers. We don't know. But we do know that there are programs out there that can help. And I just wish that this individual would have said, you know what, considering my last 48 hours and the fact that I haven't slept in 40 hours, the only seat left is a cockpit. Maybe I should.
Clearly, there were some poor decisions made here.
There were barriers. There was some TEM that he could have followed as a professional pilot, and knowing that the TEM model exists and being educated in that. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a corporate pilot or an airline pilot or cargo pilot. You know this threat and error management model that was shoved down your throat. He could have made decisions, but he was not in his right mind. So how can you fault him for that? But yeah, this could have been a disaster. We're not here to criticize the actions of this individual or the legal ramifications of what he did. We're just sitting here to use this as an example that there's always an option. There's always help. But before we go, Terry, before we let you go to sleep out there on the East Coast, thank you so much. I wanted to talk about some feedback that we received here on the show. Now, lately, I talked about this on the last show. Things have been pretty busy, pretty crazy here in my personal life. And maybe in the future, we'll share a little bit about that. But for now, just know that things are moving forward. We're all busy with our schedules. We're all under a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety. But none of us are taking mushrooms, I promise. But some feedback. A while back, I received some feedback, and I meant to play it on the air, and I don't think I did, so I want to take this opportunity now. This from Jim. Jim wrote in a while back, said, "Hey, Tony, longtime listener, first-time caller. Love the podcast, and I have learned a lot about the 121 world. I'm coming off from active duty and a start date at Transglobal and Legacy next month." This was a couple months ago, so I'm kind of curious, Mr. Jim. I'm not saying your last name for your security and protection, but you know who you are. Let me know who you ended up with. He also further wrote, "So I have some big decisions to make. On the most recent episode, you and Terry discussed retirement." Oh, you know what, Terry? I did read this with Captain Keith, but I wanted to reread it with you on the air because he had a question for you. "You and Terry discussed retirements at Legacy versus Transglobal. Myself and some other Navy buddies wanted to get your perspective, advice on what that seniority would look like over a 30-plus year career with those retirement numbers. Legacy has by far the most retirements, followed by Transglobal. From what I gather, the two biggest rules are 1, live in base, and 2, seniority is everything. Both airlines have bases I would like to live in, and I don't plan on commuting. I'm 34, and my ultimate goal is being a wide-body captain for as much as possible in my 31-year career. Would you recommend Legacy over Transglobal from a sheer seniority perspective, or Transglobal with the much larger wide-body fleet? I know that's probably a difficult question to answer, but any advice on those specific airlines to help make this decision would be greatly appreciated. Keep the dirty side down out there." From Jim. Now, Jim, we did read this, and we got Captain Keith and his perspective on the last show that aired about a month ago, and hopefully that shed some light. But now we have Terry here, and I promised I would read this to Terry. What do you think, Terry? Do you think that it's better to go to an airline that has a much larger wide-body fleet, if that's your goal, or an airline where upgrades are happening at a faster rate and the possibility to get on that wide-body fleet quicker is a possibility?
I would say that it's probably, this is all conjecture, all opinion, but I would say my opinion would be to go to Transglobal. Half the airline is wide body. That's significantly larger than, if I remember correctly, and I could be way off base here, but I thought I remember hearing that the wide body fleet at Transglobal is bigger than the other two legacies combined.
Wow.
So it's half the airline. So I would say there's more opportunity to get on the wide body at Transglobal earlier than there would be at Legacy. I could be way off base, but that would be my line of thinking.
Jim's probably in class right now at Legacy going, "Damn it." Well, thank you, Jim, again, for sending us that question. I did promise I'd get Terry to answer his perspective on that, and hopefully that did clear things up for you. Let us know where you ended up. Really would love to hear more about it. Also, a couple more feedbacks to go before we wrap up the show. This from Keith from Little Rock. "Just want to drop a line and give kudos to Alex D. As I work towards completing my ratings and hours this next year, Alex has become a solid mentor to me, and I can't thank you enough for putting this podcast and community together. Your show gives invaluable advice and access to us aspiring airline pilots to know what to expect in an airline career, what's expected of a professional aviator, and encouragement to keep going. I'm excited to share my journey with Alex and use him and your show as a resource. I can't thank both of you enough. All the best, Keith from Little Rock. Well, Keith, always a pleasure to interact with you, to receive feedback from you. Good luck. It was nice to get a chance to FaceTime with you when you did the meetup with Alex and you and your son. Really wonderful to meet you. I'm really happy that Alex has been able to be available for you. And we here at the show want to applaud you for being inspired to keep going. This is a wonderful career. I know you were talking to Alex about being worried about your age, getting into this maybe a little bit later in life, although you're younger than me. So, I mean, come on. But I think age is relative, especially now. I mean, even if you have a good decade only at a airline, I think it's worth it. It's good money. And if you can do it and your health keeps up, why not follow your dream? Why not have that passion? So many stories out there about people changing careers later in life and just being absolutely happy doing what they do. So you got plenty of time left. And plus, when they change it to age 80 for mandatory retirements, then, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You have plenty of time. Well, one final feedback from Luke. Luke, he writes, "Hi, Tony. Thanks for the great podcast. It's been great to hear someone talk about the issues that we all face in the airline game. I've been with Qantas for 28 years, having spent 8 years in general aviation prior. Keep up the good work. Hopefully I can add a story or two to your podcast someday. Cheers," from Luke. Luke from Qantas, thank you so much for writing in to us. Always love receiving listener feedback. I do appreciate it. Good luck with everything over at Qantas. I'd love to hear about your journey and your story. Feel free to reach out to us anytime with a story, either email or audio feedback, and we would love to hear more about your journey. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the show for today. We've had fun today. That's for sure. I want to thank Rob and Alex, Terry, and Roger for joining us.
But just hang on. I mean, let's give people their due here, okay? I mean, I want to thank I want to thank Real Captain Rob, First Officer Alex, First Officer Terry, and Not a Real Captain Roger, myself.
You see,
for all joining us today. I just want to, and not to mention the fact, because we almost forgot. Restricted Captain Tony, our illustrious host. So I just wanted to give people their appropriate titles as a farewell.
For close to, what did we figure out the other day? 17 years? For close to 17 years, Roger has really dished it out and been very good at putting me in my place. I say one thing to give him a hard time at dinner last night and how he's never going to let me, but you're not a real captain. And I must have hit a nerve. I'm sorry, my friend.
I wasn't going to do it until Mr. I'm a real captain doesn't know where Zurich is after the day after calling me you're not a real captain.
I've heard of this Zurich place.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well.
First Officer Alex. First Officer Terry.
I deserve it.
Not a real Captain Roger. Real Captain Rob.
And
restricted Captain Tony.
I'll take it. I'll take it on the chin, Roger.
Keep the dirty side down, folks.
That's it. Please help us share this podcast online with your friends and with your, other fellow aviators. It really does help when you share the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, whatever podcast player you're listening to. Follow us on whatever social media platforms you want to. We're starting to pare that back, ladies and gentlemen. It's starting to become taboo, I think. That and I just don't have much time to post stuff online. We also love receiving the listener feedback. Obviously, we just read a few of them. Really put a smile on all of us. We're always so happy. I share them immediately with everyone to keep us all motivated. And I just want to say thank you to all you guys. I mean, I really do appreciate all you. We joke around and we have good fun about about our skill sets and our
Geography.
our titles and geography. And my name is Tony, and I'm geographic challenged, or I don't know, what's it? Geographically challenged. That's it. So, oh God, I'm never going to live this down. Yeah, okay, make sure you check out our website, aviatortony.com. That's Alpha Victor, the number 8, Romeo Tango Oscar November Yankee.com. There you're going to find audio archives, photos from the flight line, guest book photo tab, Squawk Ident photo pilot shop. Did you know we have a pilot shop? You can order coffee mugs and stuff like that. If you ever order anything, let me know, because I don't know how that's going at all. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram users can find us under the Squawk Ident Podcast search. And one final thank you to all of you for taking the time to listen to these grateful aviators. Keep the dirty side down out there. Be safe. Don't take mushrooms. And take care of each other. Bye, y'all.
See ya.
He's grateful, if not uneducated, aviators.
I'm gonna go cry now.
Time ago. I wouldn't know anything about it.
Do you know anything about planes? Do you know anything about planes?
Can you fly this airplane and land it?
No, not a chance. No, not a chance. No, not a chance.
Roger. Huh? Roger. Alright. Request vector. Over. What?
Do you know anything about planes?
Clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
The elite. Best of the best. We'll make you better. We'll make you better.
Do you know anything about planes?
Oh, jeez. Oh, you kill me. You really do.
Do you know anything about planes?
Captain, how soon can you land? I can't tell. You can tell me, I'm a doctor. No, I mean, I'm just not sure.
Do you know anything about planes?
Can you fly this plane and land it?
It's an entirely different kind of flying.